Let's go ahead and get started. And before we get started, I want to say, Cindy, thank you, Seth, and your group so much for all y'all's hard work on this budget, and Michael and your departments. I know it's a task every time we look at it, but thank y'all for all your hard work and attention during some tough times. May I ask you, Mary, to say the opening prayer?
I'd be glad to, but can I also acknowledge them? I was reading about the GFOA award for the
yes.
past 31 years.
Isn't that unreal?
Oh my God, congratulations everybody.
Super.
That's awesome. May we
Thank
pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you and we praise you for another beautiful day, Lord. We thank you for our life, our health, and our strength, Lord. Lord, we ask, oh God, that you will be in the midst of us, that you will help us to think wisely, think clearly, Lord, and make the best decisions for our city. God bless those who could not be here. God, we just thank you. We praise you for the opportunity to serve. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Peggy?
All right.
Peggy, I think they have you.
I am going to turn it all over to you.
Good morning, council. Before we begin, I do want to say that we received some information late yesterday, certified appraisal values from the appraisal district, so some of the numbers will change, and Cindy will walk us through some of that change. But this morning, we'd like to present you the 2019-2020 annual budget. This budget is a culmination of a lot of hard work, in particular by the budget staff, all city departments, the city manager's office, but as Judy said, I really want to recognize Cindy and Zach in particular. They have spent countless hours preparing this document, and probably several months doing that as well. Just may want to make sure we acknowledge them for their hard work. As you're aware, the city continues to develop. The increased development has resulted in increased property values. That value is increased, and again, we've got those final numbers yesterday, so we'll tell you exactly what that increase is. We've also seen a significant increase in sales tax revenue, about 12.5% higher than last year. As you know, the city relies on two major sources of revenue in the general fund, and that is sales tax, which comprises almost about 40% of our total, of all of our revenue in the general fund. Property tax is second, and it makes up about 32% of all revenue in the general fund. The increase in sales tax, as you know, is both a blessing and a curse. We are fortunate that we're seeing more sales tax revenue than ever before. It's given us the opportunity to do a number of different things that we would not normally have the opportunity to do so. Things like do a number of one-time projects, increase our operating budgets, but just as importantly, I think it's also allowed us to continue to grow the city's fund balance. However, the city must also be careful not to rely too heavily on sales tax. Sales tax has grown significantly in the last 3 years, but as an example, and just 4 years ago, we saw a drop in sales tax of about $7 million. So again, it's the revenue flow of the area. So this really is about what's the best way to approach the budget from a sustainable standpoint. Sales tax for this year is conservatively budgeted at $42 million for fiscal year 20. Of this amount, $900,000 will be reserved for to satisfy the city's obligations related to its Chapter 380 agreements. The remaining $41 million is an increase of $3.8 million as compared to the current year. Again, I will say that the number continues to reflect a deliberate conservative approach by city staff. In addition, there is no anticipated increase for utility services, specifically water and sewer. That may change. As you recall, we are doing a current rate study, so we'll have that information, obviously not in time for this budget, but certainly for next year's budget. We are also proposing a 2.5% increase in solid waste rates. Those rates have not been increased in almost 3 years. We're also recommending a slight increase to the health and dental premiums for city employees, the city and its retirees, and we'll talk more in detail about that.
Look at that. Hey.
These increased fees are direct results of higher operating costs for the city. All other city-related fees and charges will remain at current levels. Also, the city department submitted just under $29 million in supplemental requests. For those of you that aren't familiar with supplementals, those are requests for things that the departments deem necessary or things that they feel they need. These are for items that are outside of their normal budget. Every year, this really is the most difficult part of the budget process because you certainly want to make sure that you provide the resources that the staff needs, but it's difficult. Each year, we sit down with each department and discuss their request in detail. And through a series of discussions and with their input, we develop a recommendation of supplemental request. And those are behind each, we'll talk about those in each of the funds, and we'll certainly provide any detail that you may need. But while there are many needs throughout the city of Odessa, it's simply difficult to fund them all. For the purposes of this budget, we are recommending to you that based on the current FY19 excess revenues, that $7,538,000 in supplemental requests be funded out of the current general fund budget. Additionally, we recommend $4.3 million in one-time and ongoing supplemental requests funded for the 2020 fiscal year. This represents $5 million more in supplemental requests that the city granted last year. The supplemental recommendations include the addition of 16 new employees, and we'll certainly go into that detail later. The budget also includes, we are also recommending a cost of living increase for all full-time employees to assist the city in dealing with the challenges of recruiting and retaining qualified individuals. This, along with the adjustments being made this year as a result of the compensation study, adjustment to PD salaries, and a planned one-time payment to the city employees will help us stay competitive in the job market. Just as a point of reference, the cost of that 3% increase is approximately $2.5 million that will need to be added to the budget. Finally, this budget does include a recommendation to set aside funds in order to grow the city's fund balance. During the years 2015 and 2018, the city utilized general fund reserves to do a number of different projects, reducing the amount available in the fund balance. It is our recommendation that we continue to add money to the city's fund balance and save money for major projects or any future emergencies. At this point, I do want to think you wanted Zach to go through the process a little bit more so that you get a much better understanding of how that works. And I think, Cindy, you'll take it after that.
Okay. So basically, every year we go to the different departments and we give them their budget, same as last year for the most part. The only things that change are things like utility costs, water, electricity, and also interfund charges. So, we have equipment services, risk management. They don't really have control over those. So that just depends on what the departments, or the funds, I should say, have to charge them to cover their costs. After that, they get a chance to look at their budget. They get to make any changes they need to make. If there's some, like an office supply line that they need to increase, they can make it within their budget. They can't go above their fixed total budget, but they can make line changes in between that. After that, they take a look at that, and as they're taking a look at that, that's when the supplemental process begins. So that's where if they're really low on one line item, well, that's when they get the chance to write it down on their supplemental list, like we're gonna need $10,000 for X reason in this line item. And then that's when they come to the city management, explain why they need that, and then that's where we're here at now. So once they see it, they give their recommendations on what they feel is actually necessary, along with the department heads. And that's pretty much the gist of it. It's a longer process, but it's supposed to be pretty simple.
Sounded pretty simple.
Yeah.
Well, it is until all the directors show up to substantiate their request. So
It's supposed to be simple, but they have 20 accounts they like to adjust all up.
Zach, I apologize, I did not specifically mention your name while ago. Thank you again for all your hard work.
He's on great job.
And before we go farther, I think y'all have met Seth as y'all came in, but Seth Bowles is our controller. He's been with us almost 6 weeks.
Almost, it'll be 6
7
weeks
years,
on Monday.
7 years, he said.
7 years, technically. We gotta get technical.
Seth's background is in public accounting, and then he served as the controller at the city of Midland for a year. And so, we're glad to have him. He was not involved in our budget process this year. He came in and he's working diligently on our conversion into the new financial system. So, he's gonna get us into the new system, so. Okay,
Fingers crossed, yeah.
so,
I'll do my best.
let me
Happy
start
to be
you.
here.
We know that.
So generally, page 3, we start with the property tax rate. And of course, this is always, our biggest obstacle is to get by the property tax rates. At the time that we prepared the council retreat book to get it out to y'all to start reviewing, we did not have final, taxable numbers from both appraisal districts. We get from Midland County Appraisal District for property that's actually in Midland County, but it's inside city of Odessa limits. And so, we had a significant increase, as you will see, if you'll turn to page 2 of the handout we just gave you. At the time that we were doing the council retreat book, our preliminary value was $9,749,000. It has crawled to $10,113,000. That's a significant increase. And so when y'all are asking me during debt proposals and other things, Cindy, why can't you calculate the tax rate? It's because it changes drastically from their preliminary numbers that they give us in April to the final numbers that we got yesterday. So, so what we go through the calculation, and I will tell you that a change to our calculation this year is in regards to the TERS. So we had a baseline value of what's in our TERS, property in our TERS, at the end of 18 of 119 million. And at their final assessed values, that TERS is now at 144 million. So it gained about $25 million. Okay, and we know that most of that's due to the hotel. And it's not at its full value because it wasn't, it's based on where it was at the time of January 1st of 19. So we had that complication to add to the tax rate. We also had an increase in new property that was added to the tax roll for the 19 year that wasn't there in 18 of 198 million. Now, when I did the calculation, I estimated 150 million, so that changed the calculation as well. So all that's to be said is we're at a point where we need to talk about what we want to do with the tax rate, and we may just go through this, and then as we go through the budget, we can talk about if there's any changes there, what we want to actually end up doing with the tax rate. But what I've showed you here is the column in blue. If you use that value and the proposed tax rate, this 0.483886 is actually your rollback rate. Okay? So in our calculation, we do a rollback rate. So that would generate basically tax revenue of 48.9, and then you take 96% because we have to allow for accounts that are not collected. So you get net tax revenue at 46.978, and then we take out the debt portion. And of course, this is much higher this year than it's been in the past because this is including the debt service on the CO issue that we're going to be voting on August 13th. So that leaves an amount for general fund at $33,406,000 as compared to last year's budgeted revenues of $30,589,000. So that gains you $2.8 million. So the far column shows, same value if we left the tax rate at what it is currently. So our current tax rate is 47.6601. Then you generate a little bit less revenue at 32,699,171 to the general fund, and so that brings your difference down about 700,000 from the first proposal. I can tell you based on what we did in your book and what we based the budget on, we were doing it at 32,385,000. So it's, that's at a difference of 1,795,000, so it's gained a little bit if you leave the tax rate the same. And at this time, I want to make the comment that, you know, we had the change in the state legislature in the bill that said you're no longer gonna get the 8% increase on your M&O rate. In the future, you're only gonna get 3.5%. So, I think staff would be remiss if they didn't suggest that you don't go below your current tax rate. Generally, the city has historically stayed just under the rollback rate. Okay, that's been our policy, but there is that option there. Okay, and then on the last page again, I'm just showing you the, in red you see what we didn't have time to go in and recategorize everything for you. So our value went from what we had estimates of 9.7 billion to 10.1 billion. And you can see that our increase went from 18% increase to a 22, almost 23% increase. Okay. I also have copies of the actual calculation. If anybody wants to see that and go through that, if you don't want to go through how the calculation's done.
I've seen it.
It's up to you. If anybody interested in this. Okay, then I will turn us to,
So Cindy, hold it, before you go back, the rollback rate currently is 0.483886.
yes, sir. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to turn you over to, we'll talk about sales tax a little bit on page 9. I think Michael alluded to this.
What again?
Page 9. So we've given you our history of sales tax collected for 4 years in the past plus the current year. And you can see that we're on track of collecting probably as much or more in the current period as we did the last period. But you can see the drastic change that happened between 16-17 and 17-18. We also, back in 14-15, went $7 million down to the following year. So while, you know, all indications is our economy is gonna stay pretty stable, we still budget this very conservatively. And that's a discussion that council can have, but staying based on our history, we did raise the estimate from the prior year. We've raised it up to 42 million, and as Michael said, we have 380 agreements that we have to pay out about 900,000 a year. Okay. Are y'all familiar what 380 agreements are?
I'm not.
These are agreements to help incentivize economic development to an extent. So many years ago, we did the one that's called Chimney Rock. It's where Best Buy and Academy is, that whole shopping area, which has been very beneficial to the city. They've brought in lots and lots of sales tax dollars. So based on the contract and the amount of infrastructure that they paid in, they get a grant under a 380 agreement. I think that one's at 5.1 million. So over a period of, I think theirs is 15 years, they get a portion, they get 50% of the sales tax they bring into the city back until they meet the 5.1 million, okay?
Essentially a rebate.
Yeah, and so we do that. We have that one. We have Parks Legato. We have Brownstone, we'll be making that first payment out this year. We've got Synergy, and then we have the one that we did with, the Torchy's Taco, and all it was the value of the land. Okay, so, and all of them have, consequences. If they don't keep their number of employees up, yeah, and, then they're not entitled to the rebate back. In the case with Torchy's, they have to also meet requirements, or they have to pay back that money due to the value of the land, okay? So, so we've got a net budget here then of 41.1 million. So we'll, go over to page 10, and, this is our general fund overview. So currently, you can see you have the column which is actual for 17-18. And this basically is what ties out to the comprehensive annual financial report that was completed recently. What we estimate for 18-19, the budget for 18-19, and then what we're proposing for 19-20, and the increases and decreases. I want to pay particular attention to the section on expenditures. You'll see through the middle of expenditures, we have annual operating expenditures. So what we're doing here is we're comparing the expenditures that were budgeted to those items. So if we did supplementals, okay, those fall below the line. So that's why you see supplementals expenditures 19 and prior. And then any budget amendments that are done during the year, for instance, we added 2.9 to the university project out of the general fund money, then you will see those items listed below. The 7.5 million is what we are proposing in one-time supplementals out of our current excess revenues for the year. So the big ticket item that you see there is 16.47, and so does anybody want that's a big number, and let me tell you what that is. Those are supplemental expenditures that were awarded last year for the current year we're in now, or prior years that haven't, that weren't completed by the start of this fiscal year. Now, a lot of that's been spent in the current year, but in order to show this to your budget, we have to put that all in at the bottom so that you see what's potentially going to happen to your fund balance based on what has been approved in the past.
Michael, could you name what those are?
Well, I can. The
Yes.
16.4,
Yes, ma'am.
the biggest part of that's the 4.2 that you see there. That was the 1.8 for the salary survey. It was 2.4 for the police.
The cameras. Was it the vest?
Vest
or
or
No.
cameras? It was
The
cameras.
body cams. Okay.
Are they using those?
Yes, they are.
Yes, they are. That's been completed, so that's what I'm saying. It includes things that we've already spent. A big part of that is the GEXA project, which was 3.5 million.
The GEX, like,
GEXA, that's where we're revamping the HVAC at Municipal Plaza and at, PD, and then they did some work here at City Hall. Another big portion of that is money that was set aside many years ago to make capital lease payments. That's about $800,000, and this current year is the last payment on that. Then you're gonna have about 3.8 million, I think, that we allocated last year as one-time supplementals, and those are various. I mean, I can go through them all, but there's a lot of them.
Okay.
So you can see we had some big ticket items in it. There's also a significant amount in there for the new financial package, the Tyler product that we're going into. And we finished up on the radio system for PD, so part of that's in there. So there are a lot of, you can recognize all of these things as stuff that we've been talking to y'all about there.
thank you, Ms. Munson, I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So, so what we're
So
looking
Cindy,
at,
I think because I think that's hard to understand, and I know when you and I went through this. What I think it's important for us to know is that we don't see these numbers again, right?
No, I mean,
the-
technically, when you do your finalized budget, you go back in and you put those into the categories where they belong.
Right.
Okay, with the exception of, what you're doing in your ongoing next year. But it's important for y'all to see it in the workshop, to see, we budgeted 89.4 million, and our corresponding expenditures to that is about 87.7. So you ask why the decrease? Well, you can see a big portion of it is in personal services, and that's because of our vacancies and, things like that. So, you know, and this is an estimate. I mean, it can change. I mean, we still have a couple of months left in the fiscal year, so things can change there. But this is our best estimate to give you at the time that we prepared the budget.
What I was talking about was the supplemental expenditures. I
Yes.
think that's the hardest to understand, because if this 16 million, and I'm still not sure 100% understand it, but the proposed budget for 2019-20 may have some of these, will have some of these payments on the 16 million.
Yes, it will.
And see, I mean, it's not in there, because once it's on here, it's only in the year.
But,
The year did it occur?
well,
No, the
you know,
year,
But when we do the annual CAFR report, they will be included as expenditures as they're spent. The purpose of putting these down here is to show you that that money has been committed out of your fund balance, okay? So, you know, when you do supplementals, they don't always occur in that year. I mean, because right now, we're asking you to approve 7.5 million out of this year money. By the time we adopt this and you approve those and adopt the budget, there's not time for our departments to spend that 7.5 million, okay? So that's how this has occurred over a period of time. But it's important that you know that that's money coming out of your fund balance. We don't want to misconstrue what our fund balance is, okay? So with that, we're projecting about a $2.7 million increase to our fund balance, and that was purposeful. We wanted to increase our fund balance. That was a goal that the council set last year when they adopted the 18-19 budget. That's something that we talked to our bond rating agencies about, that we, you know, we're conscious of what fund balance is and that we do want to increase that. Okay, so let's talk about our proposed budget then for 1920. We are adding to our revenues, mostly in the operating revenues. So this includes the increase that we did for the sales tax. This includes an increase for the property tax. Now this amount is at the estimated amount that we did before, so that will grow a little bit with the new rates that we've calculated, okay? We've increased our personal services by almost 3.3 million. Part of that is the 3% raise. It's also what y'all decided to do with the police department and the raise that we're giving there. And it also includes what we're doing with the salary survey information, okay? We had an increase in our services. Most of that is due to the charges from our equipment service fund and our information technology fund to departments within the general fund, okay? We've seen some increased costs in both of those areas, in IT and computer. The software maintenance has gone up considerably, so that's a big cost to the IT fund, and we've seen some increases in the equipment service fund. I've also proposed in here an increase to our transfers out of $200,000, and that's to the golf fund. And when we look at the golf fund overview sheet, we can see, why I think that's important for us to do. Our ongoing supplemental request of 4.467, the biggest part of this is the 3.1 that we are adding to our street maintenance. You will recall from the, review of the, transportation master plan, they were asking for us to spend 5.6 million a year on, maintenance on our streets. So, their current budget's about 2.5, so adding 3.1 gets them to the 5.6. And that will be an ongoing, increase in our expenditures. The other increases have to do with, you know, the 5%, and the 3% salary increase. Some of those things are in there, longevity, employee, from the medical premium insurance, and we'll talk about that when we look at risk management. We've made some changes there. The recommended, one time of 1149, that's a couple of items that we felt like we could do as a one time in the next year. 600,000 of that's been set aside for any downtown building work that needs to be done. That could include demolition of the OA or any other things that council, directs us to do. And, then we had, some, public work stuff, signal at 87th and Evans. So there's a couple of things that we put as one time in the next year because we didn't want to decrease the amount in the current year in what we were putting into fund balance. So we were moving it out to the next fiscal year. So with that, we're still increasing our fund balance by 5.3 million for the year under the proposed. So that gives you a little room there if there's something else we want to do out of the 1920 budget. Is there any questions on general fund yet, on the overview sheet? Okay. The next few pages shows you the changes by line items, and I won't go through all of those. I think those are pretty self-explanatory. We'll turn this to the supplementals request for the general fund. And as Michael mentioned, we had a big need, or a big request from our departments. I would like to touch on some of the major ones that we did. We're looking at a building assessment study on the city-owned buildings. This was a request from council that we put this into effect, and our estimate of being able to do that's 200,000. We're also looking at the Tyler software package specifically for code enforcement and building inspections. This is the program that we've been talking to y'all about that would really help with our development area and being able to get permits and inspections and stuff on a better basis. And that cost of that is $1 million. Okay. We're also looking at a new phone system for the city. Our phone systems are, I don't remember how.
We're in the GF non-departmental, if y'all are looking on the, okay.
And that is, I think it's 14 years old, I think so. And it's old, and so we're looking at the VoIP phone system. Most of the time they crackle a lot when you talk. So, the cost of that, estimate that we got is 730,000. And then you can see over a farther column, we put the 600,000 into a one-time next year for the downtown buildings. We've also added a position in the city manager's office, an assistant to the city manager position, and that's an ongoing request at $84,128. On the following page, y'all can see, I'm assuming y'all reviewed through these. Do we need to go through each one?
I forgot to ask you the other day, on the downtown buildings, that 600,000, is that just a placeholder, or is that for something specific?
Well, one of the
Have
things
we
that,
committed that?
one of the things we talked about is if there's some ongoing needs or to do some things in downtown, we can certainly utilize that. You remember, we've got the OA building, and I think until
Right.
we kind of finalize something with what the county may or may not do, we can always use those dollars to remove that structure.
Okay, I mean, what I meant is, so that's kind of a placeholder
ma'am.
for what we, it's not because we've
Right.
promised
And-
anybody
No,
600,000.
And anything that we would do with that money would go before council for approval before it's spent.
Just to give you an idea, we've estimated the cost of that building removal at about $500,000.
I was gonna ask you where you came up with 600,000.
Yeah, we had an actual estimate.
We had an, yeah, on the OA.
So that's removing the OA building plus $100,000.
Yes, sir, in case we need to do anything else.
On page 19, Ms. Muncy,
Uh-huh.
the supplemental expenditures. Could you explain that a little bit more?
In the proposed budget column,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, the 5,616,631 is, a total of our ongoing request. It's on the prior page, page 18, the total. You'll see 4,467,631. That's a total of the ongoing, and like I said, the biggest part of that's the 3.1 that we're adding to the street maintenance. And then the other part of it is the 1,149,000. That is the, one time for the next year. Do we have a,
I think I have an added error.
I think we have a slight adding error there.
I'm not ready.
Good catch.
She's saying.
So about 25,000. We'll get that fixed before we
Cindy, if we, I want to understand the process, because is the process we're gonna do is go through all of this, like you going through it like this, sort of summarily, so everybody kind of sees the total, and then are we gonna come back, or are we supposed to be, you know, I think it's hard to make statements about it until you kind of, until you see the whole thing. But is that right, or should we be asking, and I'm not gonna bog us down with lots of questions, but,
No, when we leave today, we need a pretty firm idea of what council wants to do with the budget, because we are required to file the budget, the absolute last day is August the 12th, that's on a Monday. We would prefer to do it on the 9th, which is Friday, just in case
Right.
anything.
no, I know that, but I'm talking about the process in this 6 hours today. Are we gonna go through it like we're going, like right now, you know, they're saying, wow, that's too fast, I haven't taught, are we trying to look at it summarily, right, I mean, for this first
Yeah, I
hour?
think we can do it either way. We can certainly go section by section and try and answer as many of the questions as you have. Or if you'd like to go through it all, and then we can come back and ask, and you can ask the specific questions, that's okay too. I think it's really whatever the council feels most comfortable with. I think we're prepared to do that either way.
I think it would be helpful to me to go through it so I can see what's happening and then come back.
And then come
answer
back,
questions.
okay, that's fun.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
just,
No, I think that's right, so you get you understand the totality of it
Okay.
to come back.
Then let me just hit a couple other highlights in the supplementals. On page 15, we have some traffic stuff that we are working on. The new preemption system, this is, I think this is the last phase, or is this?
It's the next phase.
The next phase. This is, where, they can, the emergency vehicles, fire trucks and ambulances can, change the signal so that they can get through, and so we've been doing it in phases because it's an expensive process.
and that's that new preemption.
And that's 130,000. We also have some school zone improvements that we need to take care of $127,500. And, then we're looking at in the next year to do a traffic signal at 87th and Evans. And then you will see the 3.1 million that we're adding to the street maintenance funds.
Again, that's just for maintenance of the existing roads, it's not for anything new.
That's to get us up to that 5 point something that the study said we needed to just maintain. Actually, I think we still need 11 million, but this was a big deal, this was a big addition.
And then, down at the bottom, we start with parks, and there's always lots of, things to do in our parks department. I think one of the big key items is, an irrigation system, at Freedom Park. And then there's multiple other things that they're doing for a total of $1,088,000 for parks. I think the biggest request out of our fire department was the, station alerting system. The system that they have is very old, 25 years old.
Was which one?
It's at the very bottom of page 16.
Okay.
It's the station alerting system. And that's at a cost of $450,000. On to the next page of 17. We are looking at buying backup generators for all the stations. When power goes out, that's a problem at our fire stations. So at the tune of $300,000, we were gonna take care of that need. Then our fire department requested an additional 10 positions for fire EMS. And this is to help with the shortage that they have on calls that they're, trying to do, and the amount of overtime they're having to work. We've got a lot of overtime going on in the fire department. And so, in discussion, we, a new, shift would require 6 personnel, and so that's what we're adding to them for this year. is
We're
6
adding
personnel.
some, but we're not fully staffed at this point. right?
Now, we've got several vacancies in the
Right.
department now we're trying to fill.
So they're not doing anything to address if we build Station 9
Not
through
yet,
this
no.
month. So we'll
Because
expect that one
the-
for next year.
Yeah, the completion of that will take us into 2021. So we would, and possibly some into the following year, so we would, look at that next year for increased personnel for this.
And Nicole, this includes whatever the fire chief said to you that they had plans in their regular budget and this, that keeps our firemen from being upset about the policemen's raises, right?
Well, what we're gonna do with that is that what we've committed to the chief, now understand, when we were looking at the PD salaries, Chief Alvarez did come and see me, and we talked a little bit about, firemen salaries. And Chief decided he wanted to go back and look at that, because under the firemen salaries, they have some unique, opportunities that aren't available in the police department, and that is those ad pays. And those, in some cases, are some significant dollars. So what we've indicated to the chief is that we wanna analyze and study that, because if in fact he was looking for parity, that's gonna take some work to look at, to determine whether or not, based on our current structures, there is parity, or what needs to be adjusted in order to get to parity. Because the way it's structured right now, it's difficult to determine that.
I misunderstood you. When I asked that before, I thought you said, no, there's some ways that's gonna be, the chief was okay with that.
Well.
And that was
this is
his
the-
initial.
Yeah, that was his initial, because he was looking at those ad pays, because again, those are, in some cases, very substantial.
But he since come back again?
He has since come back, yes, ma'am. And that's when what we've indicated, chief, is that we really need to have someone study that.
They're also looking at adding another rank, lieutenant.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the ad pay pay, is that an incentive or?
Yeah, for certifications, for specific licenses.
EMT.
EMT. So just as a comparison, there were how many in PD versus how many in,
Total,
yeah.
I think PD only had like 10, and then firemen easily doubled that. So they just have a lot more opportunities. They have training ones, they have the EMT one. Those are the big ones that I remember.
If they can drive the truck, they
If they
get
can drive the
extra
truck.
pay for that. If they can do, the training, they get extra pay for doing training. So there's lots of skill pays
I
that.
think,
And, yeah, and so we're trying to see if we need to revamp that. And they also have the step plan in both PD and fire that needs to be reviewed, so.
I think over time that area, and particularly in the fire department, has just changed, or we kept adding ad pays and ad pays. Well, that really does skew the salary.
So fire has 48 ad pays, and police has 17 ad pays. Of course, some of those are like beginner, intermediate, master, but you know.
But aren't, because the budget is based on what it's been doing, and this is supplemental, aren't those ad pays in the personnel budgeted costs now?
Not for their new personnel.
Not for the new personnel.
Yeah.
So we're saying that $61,000 is, no, I'm on the wrong line. The skill pay, $61,560. We're saying that is what we're gonna add to what they've already been being paid. So I guess what I'm asking is, well, it doesn't matter, I guess, until you do your study, but that is a drop in the bucket compared to what we did for police.
Well, that skill pay that you see there, Peggy, is gonna be for the new salary, the new
Just for
position.
the 6.
The 6 that we're adding.
So those 6, if you divide that number by 6, it's an extra $10,000 that they're budgeting for per fireman. So that's
For
10,000
skill pay.
for skill pay.
Okay, so what are we budgeting for skill pay? We're not budgeting anything additional in this for the existing employees.
No, existing employees' skill pay is budgeted in your budget. in
That's
your
what I'm
regular
talking
budget.
about. We're not doing anything additional
No,
through
no.
this.
So this skill pay is just for those new 6
Okay.
people.
Okay, so I guess it seems like, I don't know, it just seems like that if we're doing the budgeted salaries that have the skill pay in it with a 3% increase, that's really all we're talking about doing additionally for firemen.
At this time.
Yes, ma'am, until we get the results of that study.
But
Okay.
honestly, when you look at the skill pay, it's quite a bit different than what any other city employee has the opportunity to get.
I just see those retiring,
Yeah.
retired firemen, we're
Yeah.
just losing firemen left and right, and
Yeah.
I mean, if they feel, it feels like we've done something for policemen that we haven't done for firemen, but I'm sure it's probably because I don't understand the fireman's salary.
I think if we could sit down
Yes,
and actually get a breakout
we can.
of what they have the opportunity to achieve, because it's everything, there's quite a bit.
Well, as
What
you can
all- what all
see,
are
it
they-
adds 10,000 a year to their salary,
Yeah.
just for these 6, it's over 10,000 a year.
And that's something he estimated too, so I mean.
Yeah, no, I hadn't even worried about it because I thought that the chief had said, yeah, okay, we're all right because
He
of
did,
all
Peggy.
their other.
He did, and then he came back sometime after, and he said he wanted us to reconsider and look at it again.
Okay, and the reconsider, at least at this point, is not in this budget.
No,
Okay,
And I think the reason you're seeing that they were talking yesterday about the retirement of their, some of their firefighters, is a lot of them are taking, some of them got grandfathered into the old plan. And so they're taking advantage of that in their retirement, okay? So that's part of the reason for that too.
Of the 10 personnel that they're that they're proposing to add. 6 are firefighter, is that correct? What are the others?
Fire EMS. They wanted 10, and we're only
We're
giving
not
them
giving them
6.
10, we're giving them 6.
They have,
The
I mean,
488 is for 6.
we gave
The
them,
813 was for 10.
I think we gave them 10
So it's
positions last year
81,000
as well.
apiece.
Councilmember White, if I could explain what they're doing there, if you recall, Station 2 is a squad station where they have 4 firemen at that
Right.
station. And what this is gonna accomplish is allow them to have 6 firemen, or firefighters, as the other stations do. That way, when there's a call for EMS or fire, both of those pieces of equipment can go, not one piece is sitting at that station.
Okay.
Okay.
So, where they're requesting
10.
computer equipment for a new PIO, furniture for a new PIO, am I just not
didn't-
reading
yes,
this
We
right?
didn't fund
We
the
didn't.
PIO,
That's
so
a
where
public
that goes.
information officer, and
we
we're
didn't
not
fund that.
funding that position at this time.
So the three lists of numbers on the left side are what they requested. On the right side is what they management decided to fund or request to be funded.
And the vehicle and stuff, they didn't fund.
Okay, I'm with you. Okay.
It's a lot of numbers.
We did fund them a new, inspector with the skill pay associated with that and, vehicle that's needed for that, yes.
So fire's getting total of 7.
That's what I'm,
No, their total request was 6.1 and they're getting, the 1.1 in, ongoing, 649,000 in, one time. No, I'm sorry. I'm getting them up.
649.
They're getting, I switched pages, they're getting the 1.1 in out of current year, the 649 in ongoing, and 75,000 in one time next year. Okay.
You follow
Police,
that, Peter?
Yeah.
Okay.
police's request, their biggest request was replacement and acquisition of new public safety radios. With the, upgrade that was done, in the radio system that was completed this year, they are requesting the new radios. Their radios are several years old, and that's at a total of 2.4 million.
They're also reaching end of life, so they want.
Yeah. Well, they're no longer supported by Motorola because they're out of, warranty.
And these radios can also be digitally programmed. Right now, it does take IT or outside representative to program channels onto the radio. But they can be digitally upgraded, or the channels can be changed over the broadcast. So it will reduce maintenance that we have internally.
And then we gave police a few other things that they had requested out of one time. And then, in keeping with, what we've been doing with community development, we're extending, the educational program, that's the block parties and things like they're doing on those lines. And then 200,000 for unsafe structures. So with, their total request, we're giving them the 7.5 out of current, 4.4 out of ongoing, and 1.1 out of new year one time. So we basically funded 57% of their request, their total request, which is significant.
The best I've seen.
Yes.
We funded 57% of whose?
Of the total of the request for general fund. Okay. I will add that when you look through the supplementals, they are listed in the priority order that the departments give us. So the things first in the department, whether it's under one time or ongoing, those are the things that were most needed for them. page 19 is, the proposed budget by department is just showing you, the department from year to year. So you can see, changes in that. Okay. So I will turn this to page 20 and talk about water and sewer. So water and sewer, let me explain first about the Pioneer contract. You will see that, when we're budgeting, we budget the revenue and we budget expenditures for the same amount. This is done because when we account for it on an actual basis, we have to account for the revenue coming in, so you need that comparison. But council, when we signed the contract with Pioneer, it was with the intent that that money would not be used for operations. It would be used for special projects, to find new water sources if we needed it, to improve our quality of water. So those are the types of things. So this budget is basically your operating budget. So it would not include what's going on with Pioneer. But anything we spend Pioneer money on is approved by council before that's done. Okay, so, we're projecting a pretty good year for, water and sewer revenues, and part of that's due to, the Quail Run, project that's on the south side of town. A couple of months into, at the end of the 17-18 year, they began taking their water from us. Prior to that, they were having it piped to them from some water wells up in the Amarillo area. And so the last 3 months of 18, we saw an increase in our water revenue because they got cut off from that source and started taking water from the city. So our current year is projected to show pretty good with increased water revenues out to just, the increase in the population, but also due to the Quail Run situation. Our expenditures are in line, they're a little bit short. Again, that's in our personnel services. We've got quite a few vacancies in our utilities operations. We also had some supplementals that rolled into the 18-19 fiscal year. So we're projecting to end up with a fund balance of, in total, of $59.9 million for this year, and that is estimated. So when we look at proposed numbers for 1920, we're not quite brave enough to budget our revenues at the same source. We do know that Quail Run is probably looking for alternative water sources, so we didn't want to totally rely on what we're getting in this year. We wanted to be a little conservative there. So we're budgeting our water revenues at $40.7 million, our sewer revenue at 14, and then the rest of our revenues there. Our expenditures, with budgeted increases in personnel services. We've got a little bit of an increase in our supplies. Most of that's due to, we have a slight increase in our cost to CRMWD. They're actually lowering the cost per 1,000 gallons by 4 cents. But because our water usage has increased and we're a member city of CRMWD, then our fixed cost is increasing on a monthly basis. So those two offset to about $300,000. So that's our increase in we carry that under supplies. Services increases, again, that's probably due to equipment services increase in charge. The amount of $1,969,000 in capital outlay, that is for the tax contract. If y'all recall, we had to take that to an outside source because we couldn't keep up with the tax contracts. That was for $2 million this last fiscal year, and it's budgeted at $2 million in the new year. But when we adopted the budget last year, it wasn't in there. That was a change we made during the year, okay? And then we had another, our other capital outlay went down slightly, so it nets to $1,969,000. Our general administrative fee gross payment, our administrative fee, is, calculated by a third party. They look at all the services that, because water and sewer is like a utility, we have to, the general fund does lots of services for it in the way of the finance department, the city manager's office, the legal office. So this third party looks at all of our time. They go and visit with people, and they do a cost allocation for us, and they determine what that charge is, that administrative charge. And it's charged to our significant enterprise funds and to our internal service funds. Gross receipt payment and in lieu of tax, those are, if the water and sewer fund was outside the city and was a business, then they would pay a franchise fee, just like the gas company pays to the city and the electric company pays to the city, and they would be paying property taxes. So these are charges that go to our water and sewer fund and our solid waste fund because they are a business type entity within the city. Okay. We are recommending some one-time and ongoing supplementals, and we'll look at those in a minute. Typically, we are not doing capital improvements in our operating funds. We're usually using our bond money for that, or we would use Pioneer money for anything related to the water side that we were doing, okay? So we're projecting an increase in revenues over expenditures of just under $1 million for the water and sewer fund, okay? The next few pages talk about changes, and I would point out that you'll see we're showing a decrease in our commercial water revenue. Early indications from our water rate study is showing that we would have a decrease in our charge to ECUD. That's a big portion of what we're doing in our water rate study, and it's showing that we will probably have a decrease in the rate that we're charging to ECUD. So we've taken that into account in our budget. Again, the big increase in industrial is due to the Quell Run.
How much of that, do you remember, was Quell Run?
The total,
Where were we at on Quell
it
Run?
was 6 million. or
Just
something.
about.
6 million, 6 to
6
7 million.
Yeah, for this year.
Again, there's detail of your changes in expenditures, and then on to the next page, and it gives you your total change. Okay. On page 23, just one page of supplementals for water and sewer, a little easier to look at. So some of the significant things we did here is, and Philip may have to help me out here, an update for the water utilities system. This is an AWIA risk and resiliency assessment, and this is something new that's been mandated by, it's under, when you go to supplemental, it's under Utilities Administration on page 23, the $250,000. This is a new requirement that's been set out by the federal government, and so we are going to have that done by March of 2020, and so that's going to cost us about $250,000 to have that response plan done. Okay.
That's what they call one of those unfunded mandates.
Additionally, we did add a projects coordinator position to our utilities department, and benefits for that. Another significant thing is underwater treatment. We're needing to do a new pump and switch gear at our Yukon pump station. That's costing us about $500,000. Then at the Darrington plant, we're needing to continue some work on our clarifiers. I mean, we've been doing this over the last couple of years. So we're doing the final clarifier for it, it cost of $250,000, and above that, a grit removal unit replacement. If y'all ask me what that is, I probably can't tell you, but $250,000. But Tom assures us that that's absolutely necessary. Okay, so in total, we're funding $1.2 million for the water and sewer fund supplement. Page 24 just gives you what when we've done increases to the water and sewer rates, and that we are not proposing any increase at this time. And I think we'll probably be looking at February, March for results of our water rate study will be in, and then coordinate that with the water master plan and wastewater master plan that y'all have adopted, and we'll be looking at what we're gonna need to issue in debt for the water and sewer side at that time. And that would probably correspond with a rate increase then.
And that's in February.
Probably, Tom said after the first of the year, so it's probably when that will be
We
final.
haven't had an increase since 2015, 16?
Nope.
I had a pretty big one in 2012.
Yeah.
So on page 25, we'll talk about the solid waste fund. As you will note, we managed to pull that one about a negative into a positive at the end of 17-18, and we're projecting a pretty good year for 18-19. We've seen some slight increase in our revenues, and so we've made some adjustments for that in our proposed budget. It's staying pretty much in line with what actual looks like. We're budgeting 14.7, we're projecting 14.8 coming in. Our expenditures have taken a little bit of an increase in services. Again, that's the equipment service charge. We've had some increase in the cost of those trucks and with maintenance on the solid waste trucks. And we are recommending some supplementals that they need in the amount of $488,000. And so we are showing a slight increase of revenues over expenditures for the year. But this is with a proposed 2.5% increase in the fees. And we'll look at that in just a minute. I have a history of those rates as well. Okay. On page 27, you'll see the supplemental request for our solid waste department. And I will remind y'all that we're just now, well, I guess it's been going on about a month, we've started our solid waste master plan. So we expect to have the results of that May. So we will be adjusting some of these as a result of that, okay? So some big ticket items that we did for them was an articulated trash truck. That's $250,000, and with that, we're adding one driver position for that truck at $77,000, and then benefits associated with that. They are gaining a roll-off truck that Equipment Services is buying for them in the amount of $210,000, and then we will pick up the maintenance for that truck as well. We did add a new position, another new position, which is the supervisor position and benefits related to that.
Do we really just pay?
We're changing the grade, I'm sorry, it's not a new
yes.
position, we're changing the grade of that position.
Do we really just pay our drivers $29,880 a year? Am I reading that right?
No, that's the,
That is the salary.
that is, yes.
That's one from the salary survey that was.
With the salary survey, it hasn't gone through yet, but that will be a little bit more.
Yeah. That was a significant part of our salary survey, was the solid waste drivers.
But that was what they were being paid before.
But we didn't do any, we're not changing that.
No, we are changing them, it's just in a different line item, it's in, the salary survey adjustments is where we're accounting for that. When they did their submission of supplementals, that had not taken place yet, so they've got it in here at the old amount. But the increase, we are accounting for the increase in the budget under the salary survey line item.
Do we have any idea what that is?
I believe they got a 3,800 a year increase.
Yeah, it sounds right, 30,800.
And that's prior to the proposed 3% increase?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, so they will get that on top of that.
Still not a lot of money.
On page,
Those are CDL drivers, huh?
Yes, sir, they are.
yes.
I'm
I
surprised
can't
they're
even
trying to-
imagine we can't even find anybody, cause they're making over $100,000 CDL drivers on.
Solid waste is currently 3 drivers short. Typically, solid waste does have the ability to retain and recruit drivers, so it's rare that we have
It's
openings on the truck
amazing,
side.
yeah, you would think that would be one of our hardest retention things, but it's not. But they are going to get the salary survey increase and a 3%.
Are they working overtime?
Yes, they
Are they paid?
Paid
Yes.
for-
are,
yes, sir.
yes,
So that's hourly.
yes,
That
that's
is
just
hourly.
hourly.
So they have an opportunity to make,
Oh, yeah.
and with us being short, then of course they're working what?
Yeah,
on
but we're
average, how
only,
many hours?
but we're only 3 short, how many do we have total?
I don't know
How
total.
many solid waste drivers?
How many hours are they working overtime on average?
On average, I'd have to pull that for you, but an example of the overtime with the community block party that was this weekend, all of the drivers collectively logged 75 hours of overtime.
Of
But that's a-
overtime.
Yes, that's a unique,
Collectively.
Yeah.
No.
How many of them? How many of them was it?
So that was on a volunteer basis, and I believe there were 25 that participated in that.
25 of them.
Yes, ma'am.
they are great at volunteering for those block parties.
And they are going from 29,880 to 32,900. So
And that's
almost
before the
33,000.
3%.
That's before the 3%.
Zach, and how many positions were
I'm showing 35.
And they will be receiving the one-time payment we're doing on the August 20th.
What is the one-time?
The one-time payment is $1,200 to all employees,
And that's the all.
all full-time employees, except appointed positions.
So does this get changed to accommodate that now, the supplemental pay? Or do we just pay them more?
It will in the actual budget.
Budget.
Right now, it's showing up in the line item that's called,
Compensation studies.
compensation study,
Increase.
okay?
That piece.
Yes.
But I mean, like these new positions, are they showing up in the
They're
comprehensive
in-
study with the?
yes.
Okay.
So what we did is we encompassed everything that, the compensation study increase is actually happening in this fiscal year, but it affects next fiscal year. So we've got that line item that's giving all of those people that it affected the increase for the full year next, so we have it in our budget going forward,
Okay.
okay?
Make it the 1,200 when?
It's going out on the August 20th check.
20? Oh, I thought it was gonna be on the 5th.
Well, we were trying, but, okay. Our proposed 2.5% increase, to the solid waste, rates, on a single-family residential rate, this amounts to 50 cents a month. Okay? And we have not raised the rates, since the 16-17 fiscal year.
Council, before we go to the next one, if you guys wanna take a break, we can certainly do that.
Yes,
So-
my brain.
Michelle just did this, she said it was a second.
Yeah. Take a break.
Proposed budget what's the round number of the proposed budget for next year?
Total?
It's outside
I
of
don't
my.
have that number yet. I'll
Well,
have to add them.
just a round.
Ian,
And
I
that,
am on.
and I'd asked, Michael, that just that increase of 2.5% includes commercial also on the.
It includes all rates, 2.5 to all, rates. Okay. I'm on page 29, where it's a stormwater fund. I guess it was the 16-17 year to 17-18 that we actually, was that the year we increased?
I believe so.
We actually, set up, storm water rates. The mandates for what we're doing in the stormwater fund have increased over the years. And so, the new rate schedule went in several years ago. We're not proposing an increase to the budget. It seems to be right in line with what we're receiving. Our expenditures have some slight increases, again, with personal services and in our services line item. Bringing in, a little over $200,000 to the fund, for the next year. So not a lot of change or issues with the stormwater fund.
And you said, I think you told me the difference between the proposed budget and the estimated is just because we're short so
We're
many
very
positions.
short in that, fund. We, in
And
fact,
apparently have been short for 2 years.
yes, we have, and so that's been, and so I think streets been helping them some and, different things there, so.
So primarily street sweepers.
And they did not have any supplemental requests, so they're one of our favorite funds.
What about the next one?
Okay, we are now at equipment service. And for our new members, I would like to, and Phil, I may turn this over to Philip to explain, because he used to be over equipment service, kind of how the rental revenue is determined. So would you do that, Phil?
Sure, so when the city purchases a vehicle for a department, a rental rate is developed, and within that rental rate, there's a charge back to the department based on how long we're gonna keep that vehicle. So just an example, if we buy just a white fleet truck and we're gonna keep it 5 years, we'll charge that department back for 5 years for that vehicle, plus a 3% increase on that. That way they don't have to come up with the capital cost to buy a new vehicle every 5 years. It's already being put aside into the equipment services fund. But along with that, we also charge a maintenance fee. So whatever they're actually being charged for their maintenance, that includes their annual inspections, their registrations, anything that they may need for that vehicle, we will charge that. And also any fuel that's charged to that vehicle, we'll charge it back to that department as well. And then we also have a telematics software on all of our vehicles, a GPS, and it also does engine diagnostics, and that's charged back to the departments as well. So all of those items are combined into one cost per vehicle, and those are actual costs that we see going back to the departments.
You said 3%, does it go up 3% a year, or is
And we have it just as right now as a steady 3%, so it's 20%, we'll just get 3% on it.
Okay. And so that's the mechanism for determining revenue to the fund, is based on that cost and the rental rate, okay? So, and the reason I mention this is because, you'll see that in this year, in the proposed year for 1920, if you look at the third line from the bottom, this is the line item that talks about replacements, okay? So replacements come about as the vehicle is ending its life, and we do have vehicles that stay on after their life's ended. So we may have some pickups that the wear and tear on it has been very good, the mileage is not bad, so we can keep it year 6 instead of cutting it in and replacing it in year 6. So some of those things happen. So this line item is what is expected to be replaced in that period. So you can see that it changed significantly from what we budgeted in 18-19. It went down because what we are anticipating replacing in the 19-20 year is significantly lower. I can tell you that, and so that builds the fund balance a little bit, okay? But next year, Philip's already given me the list for next year, and it comes to the tune of 9.4 million next year. So we're gonna see a significant increase. The reason for that is the ambulances get replaced next year, and those are big ticket items. So every year can have a big fluctuation in what you're actually replacing, okay? But that doesn't correspond to how the rental rate is devised. So I wanted to make that kind of clear so that you understood what we're doing.
Can we reset your schedules such that you're replacing ambulances every year and kind of reduce that?
So the issue we have with that, council member, and it's definitely something that we can work on. I would say the city's paying for a decision that was done before any of us were here, is that all of the ambulances for the city were bought at one time. All of the fire trucks were bought at one time, so they all wear out at one time, and so we're having to continually replace those. But as Cindy said, that was a projected list that we had. Something that we may be able to look at is if an ambulance has lower miles than another, we're not having as many problems, we may be able to replace a certain percentage at this point, a certain percentage at this point, and that way they're not all due at the same time.
And I understand we've got one ambulance, it's a year and a half old, it's got 80,000 miles on it or something.
No, sir, I don't think we have anything to that extent yet. And looking at the last report, we had a few that were close to 3 to 4 years old, and they're in 68,000, 70,000 miles.
I know they're used a lot.
Yes, sir.
From here to Gardendale and back,
Yeah,
that's using it a lot.
right.
And that may be another discussion that we have. We have an 8-year life set on our fire trucks, and the fire trucks are just over 2 years old in service. And we're approaching some that have close to 30 to 40,000 miles, so they're definitely workhorses, and they're out there. So they may not make that 8-year mark that we have set now.
When,
We need to stagger that, I think, though, at least think about staggering it.
if it's possible. So, the replacement on just not talking about fire trucks or ambulances, but, you know, I know that the city's gone a lot to the Tahoes in a variety of departments. So is the replacement a longer term?
Yeah,
like
they're
the
on
little
8 years.
sedans?
It depends on the
They're on
department. So like the police department, previously those were not take-home units, and they were being used 24/7, so those had a 3 to 5 year life on them. But now that
Okay.
they're assigned to one officer for one shift, they're an 8-year life.
Okay.
There's other departments such as utilities where they carry sludge and the backs of them rust out, things of that nature. We keep those 3 years, but your typical fleet vehicle will be 8 years. Yes, ma'am.
So for the current estimated numbers, we're looking at 15.6 million revenues, and then we'll have 13.6 in expenditures. So we're adding a little bit to the fund balance for the year. And then again, for the proposed budget 19-20, we're gonna be at 16.5 and expenditures of about 13.9. Okay. And we did not have any supplementals for the equipment service fund.
Schedule on 33.
On 33 this is the equipment that's going to be purchased, in the 19-20 year.
And is it that they just didn't request any, or?
Yes,
Any
ma'am.
supplementals? No.
Yeah, Equipment Service did not request any supplementals for this year. I will tell you that over the last probably 3 years, we've done an extensive renovation of our building. So we have spent quite a few on that, so we are pretty up to date on what we need.
Okay, on page 34, we'll look at the Information Technology Fund.
Is Cindy, one other thing I just want to
Okay.
clarify is, on this equipment replacement, this is just something that is automatic. These things are, they don't come through
No,
supplemental here.
these are automatic.
Okay, so if the police are like, there's another ambulance that's on the supplemental to get a new ambulance.
Right.
So it's not included in these
Right.
numbers. And the new stuff comes through the supplemental and then goes here,
Only if it's an additional
a new
unit.
yeah,
Okay.
something that we never
Anything
had
that's a
before.
replacement goes
Comes
through
through
the
here.
Equipment Service Fund.
Okay,
Yes.
I just want to be sure.
So if we add a position to any of our departments and it requires a vehicle for them, then they have to pay that vehicle the first year, and then they go into the replacement program, okay? And we do the same thing with the computers in the IT fund. So first year, if it's a new position, you have to have an additional computer, then it pays for out of the department the first year. Then it rotates into the replacement, and they get charged a rental fee after that.
So as we grow, these will over time become staggered, like the new ambulance won't be on the same replacement
No,
as these
right,
that are coming.
right.
So there's some
There's
natural,
some natural,
but not,
yes.
yeah, gotcha.
And I mentioned something about on the equipment replacement list on page 33, something that we will bring to council is the purchase of our police units. And going to Councilman Sprawl's question, when we went to the take-home fleet, we bought 75 police Tahoes at one time. So in order to not replace 75 at one time, we've started a staggered schedule. And prior to this council, we had a plan set up where we were gonna buy 15 new units every year. So you will see, starting this next year, that there are some units that will be 5 years old, maybe 6 years old, that are gonna get replaced, but they haven't hit that full 8 years. And the reason is for that we don't buy all 75 Tahoes at one time. And what we're doing is we're looking at vehicles that may have the most issues, the most miles. Unfortunately, we have units that get wrecked, and we'll pull those out first.
But they're not all, I mean, we're buying new ones to replace, but that doesn't mean those 15 are out of service.
Not
No,
necessarily.
no, ma'am.
What's a tire cutter?
I'm sorry?
A tire cutter?
So we pick up quite a bit of tires from bulk waste, and it'll shred tires, it'll shred mattresses. It's basically a shredder that can cut up items to be disposed.
Okay, I'll go to IT fund on page 34. So projected for estimated revenues is 4.4 for 18-19, year we're in now. Our expected expenditures are at almost 3.6, so they're gaining several $100,000 in their fund balance. Part of this is because the computer replacements that were done during the year, the timing on replacing them didn't necessarily coincide with the amount of money that was budgeted, the $400,000. So they installed or replaced $170,000 less, or that's the plan at this point. Now, it may change if they can get them in before the end of the year, but our IT department has been very busy with the whole Motorola project, so that's kind of cut down on some of their time in getting to replace computers, so they may be picking that back up soon, but right now we're estimating them at 231. So our proposed budget, instead of charging internet charges separately, because that's an extra line item that we have to account for, we just roll it into the whole technology charge. So that's a difference that we made from last year to this year. So we're budgeting 4.9. We have expected expenditures of 4.7. And so they'll add a couple $100,000 to their fund balance. One of their largest increases is under maintenance, that's actually the software maintenance. Costs have increased with that, with the new Motorola system, our fee went up with that, our software maintenance fee went up with that. We also, we have to have email accounts for all of our employees, going into the new system. You know, a lot of our, employees have not had email accounts before, some of our street workers, you know, more of our laborer type. So we'll be installing some, kiosks, or computers, set aside. They'll have to input their time, into the computer now through their email account. They'll take care of all of their benefits, through their medical and dental benefits, changing their beneficiary, anything that they need to do in relation to those will be done, on the kiosk by the employee themselves. So that's one of the moves in our new technology that, we'll be doing. And so we've had some increased licensing costs that we account for under software maintenance for that. Okay. They had a couple of supplemental requests. One is for, the ongoing, maintenance on the phone system, and also, a Microsoft specialist position, that's we've considered necessary, especially, going to Microsoft 365. The VoIP phone system was listed here, but we're actually funding that out of a one-time supplemental in the general fund. That's a large, supplemental, request that would, you know, affect this fund significantly. And that's pretty common for how we've handled large IT purchases in the past. When it's a system-wide thing, it's done through a general fund supplement.
How many employees we have in IT?
How many employees? Zach, can you?
I wanted to wake you up on there, Zach, I saw you quit.
Sean, that was enough. This age of technology, they're kind of our lifesavers, the IT department. One of the reasons that they are, we've gone ahead with that additional position is because we've kind of taken away one of their positions strictly for the implementation into the new system. You've got to have an IT person on that pretty much round the clock, and that's been Fatima, for us, and she's done an outstanding job.
20.
So, 20. Okay, and you know, that includes, we have a couple of people that are doing nothing but work on, the computer systems inside the public safety vehicles, particularly the police department. So, I am on page 37, risk management. This is the fund that handles our medical and dental claims, for our employees. The general liability claims, and workers' comp claims. And, we have seen, this fund diminish a little bit in the recent years, mostly because the cost of, going to the doctor and having procedures done, medical costs have just increased. And also, we've seen increases in our, prescriptions as well. So because the fund is a internal service fund, it's supposed to stay in the black, and that's where we'd like to keep it. So at the end of last year, it had a fund balance, an operating fund balance of $623,000. We do have stop loss insurance that kicks in, at different, phases for our medical, for general liability, and for workers' comp. So anything catastrophic, we do have insurance that helps cover that. That you can see that, $600,000 is not a very, hefty fund balance for, this type of fund. So we did, go in and propose some increases in our revenues. currently, employees pay, we have 3 different plans. We have a gold plan, a silver plan, and a bronze plan. And the difference is basically the deductible that you pay each year, okay? So if you're on the lowest plan, the bronze plan, employees' cost is free for medical. They do pay a cost for dental. For employees plus 1, they pay $17 a month to cover their plus 1. For employees plus however many, so it would include spouse and children, it's $37.50 a month. So you can see that's a very reasonable amount. Our risk management department did a survey among the pick 6 cities that we usually compare ourselves to. That'd be Abilene, Amarillo, San Angelo, Wichita Falls, Lubbock, Midland. And none of those are offering free employee medical insurance anymore. They are actually charging a minimal, or some amount to the employees. We've seen that happen out in the.
Are we advertising that when we're trying to recruit?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, I mean, are we putting it in big bold letters?
Well, yes, I mean, we talk about that when we interview people, when we present, compensation packages, we talk about that, we talk about the 7% and then the matching to 2-for-1 on the TMRS retirement. Yes, and it makes a big difference. I know when I came, I dropped from paying $680 a month to cover my family to $37.50. So that's an amazing difference, okay? And I think we see ECISD is charging their employees a minimum amount. I'm not sure what it is. Ector County is doing that. So because of the status of our fund, and based on recommendation from the Director of Risk Management, we thought it was time to start with a minimal amount to our employees. And so we proposed a $15 a month charge. That is $180 a year for the employee. We also looked at changing the plus 1 from $17 to $25. And family from $37.50 to $50. Okay? That is absolutely, y'all have to agree to that, or we can pull it back out. At
And
the
no
same
change
time,
to silver and gold?
well, it would be the same, it would be effectively the same across the board. Or did we change silver and gold? Yeah, I think it.
Did they show it? I don't remember if they showed it, but I would assume it was the $15 going up,
Yes.
so.
It was just
Up-
$15.
Up the chain to silver.
So those changes generate the $500,000 difference.
No, not even close. Okay.
So what
So
does-
the other increase is the city as the employer pays an amount per position to this fund, for medical and dental. So we went in and raised the medical amount $350 per position. So each department is now contributing an additional $350 per position to the fund, okay? So we're taking the increase to the employer of $350 per position annually.
So is there a breakdown possibly of what the $15 generates?
I think it was
$25 and the $50.
$65,000.
The rate changes were about 160,000, and the rest of it would be coming out of,
Yep.
departments.
But there is a small increase to the retirees as well. So anytime we propose any type of increase within, we also charge that to the retirees. The retirees that are 65 and older and Medicare eligible, we become secondary insurance to them, so they pay a lesser premium because we're only covering what Medicare does not cover. So the combination of all of that increased $510,000.
We,
I know it's minimal, and I know it's probably something you have to do, but when the employee is looking at, okay, I haven't been paying much, now I'm gonna have to pay, you say you're giving me a raise, but then you're also making me pay some on the insurance, so
Yeah, and some of those lower salaries,
that, the lower
That's-
salary.
that's taken their,
So you,
that raise.
It's not taking the raise, it's a $15 a month, and they're getting a 3%, plus they're fixing to get their one-time payment of $1,200.
I
I mean,
think,
there is an additional cost to them.
I think the $200,000 that we're gonna raise is not even at all worth that. I know Cindy and I talked about this. I don't think we're competing against DCISD in the county. I don't even care what they're doing. Because, and the school district, I mean, that's just not who we're competing against. We're competing against private companies. And I know Cindy said she didn't know that many private companies that paid their employees health insurance, but I know a lot. I
We
mean,
do.
we do, that the employee is free
Absolutely.
and you pay for the spouse. This is such a, it's just not enough money.
It's an emotional thing.
It is.
It's the most emotional thing,
Yep.
and for $160,000.
It's just not worth it.
I have to agree on that. I do not think it's worth it. I think
We can pull that back, guys.
I think and I agree entirely with, we're not competing against that. It's, the private sector is the majority of what you've got,
And they're
uh,
sucking the
we
employees.
sucked it up this year. I mean, I know it's philosophical, but philosophically, it's not worth it.
I think it's real, because it's perception and that you hear it. Yes, we're thankful for the raise, 3%, but then, we, and I
Well,
know
and
if
it-
they add it up, it's not gonna be, but it does feel like it.
It's the fact that it was free and now it's not.
And then they're gonna factor in, and plus you're getting a lot of sales tax revenue that, that I know that it's not equal, but that's how,
Are y'all opposed to passing along the $350 a year increase that we're seeing to the retirees?
I don't think the retirees should, I don't think they should have to pay the increase either. I really don't.
You know that,
This is one of the biggest concerns for people as they retire is their insurance.
but we're talking about a Medicare supplement policy in essence, right?
No.
No.
If you retire anytime before age 65, you can stay on the city's insurance and you can carry dependent coverage on the city's insurance. And I can tell you that a large part of your OPEB cost comes because of between those that have retired and are not yet 65. That's where our biggest costs are.
But I don't.
Along with active employees. I mean,
How much
active
do you
employees
retire?
also.
I pay about $800 a month.
for just
Me and
you.
Jack.
You and Jack.
And I mean, we're both retirees, but we have to carry one as a dependent.
Right.
Right.
I don't think, I mean, when you're retired even, I don't think people are leaving here with great big huge retirements. Certainly, hopefully enough that they can live comfortably because they worked for us long enough. But if we gave them this benefit, I just, and we've seen at the hospital what a hot issue this is. I think we need to honor whatever we said. I don't think we need to increase it.
Well,
personally.
when you say honor what we said, it's always been understood that retirees under the age of 65 would pay whatever the premium is that the city's paying for its active employees. So that stays consistent. We are increasing that $350 a year.
We're increasing it to $350 from
No.
$3.
No, we're increasing it $350 a year annually per position.
So what does a retiree pay now roughly?
Like I said, I think
I
I'm
think,
about an 800.
Mm-hmm.
So So if it's, if we
Plus
split
one.
that, if we split that.
No,
say
it's
four-
not split, I think it's 6 something, and then to add a dependent is the difference.
So
Yeah.
in Deidre's case, for example, that would go up $350, is that right?
Yes.
Well, then I will be adamantly opposed.
The reality is, this is always gonna climb. In foreseeable future, we're gonna have an insurance problem.
We already have an insurance.
And we do have an insurance problem, and at some point, you have to include folks in that. Now, I would say give it to the employees, sorry, Deidre. I would say give it to the employees, but we really need to have some way of advertising that. That's kinda like giving them a raise, isn't it?
It is.
And we do, I mean.
Somehow we need to say, it was discussed that we were gonna charge you an extra, $15 a month. But council decided that was not a good idea, or whatever you want.
And they will love y'all and be mad at me.
Well,
And that's okay.
but
I
that-
am proposing what
but
risk
that
management
fund-
wanted to do.
That fund can't go to zero.
It can't go to, and I can tell you, in past history, that fund has been in the hole.
So are we gonna ask the taxpayers to pay it,
That's what you're doing.
or ask the employees to participate?
But it's kind of a both.
It's a catch-22.
It's
It
a
is.
catch
It
22.
is,
I'm
no doubt
paying more
about it.
taxes also,
But
and which
it's-
that are going up.
It's
Most
some-
people that work for the city are not working for the pay rate. They're working for the stability and the actual
And the
benefits
benefits.
package.
I go back to the driver of the truck, they are city drivers, so they can make $100,000 out in the real world. But as you're saying, they work here, they've got great hours, they got a great environment, they got great benefits. So, you do have some merit there. What you're saying is they work here because it's a great environment.
And that same driver, when he retires from TMRS, is not gonna be drawing that much money on his retirement. He is not. And then putting on an additional $350 to his insurance is a burden. There would be no reason to want to retire if you are working here for 30 years and your pension that you get only goes to pay your insurance.
You'd have to either get another job or cut back on some stuff.
We can kick the can down the road if we want to,
We can.
but it's gonna
Well,
have to happen
And if
someday.
they retire at age 65, that's different, because their premiums is much less at age 65, because Medicare is a
But,
primary.
I don't
so
feel
we
like-
become much like a Medicare supplement policy.
At age 65.
Right?
I don't feel like we're kicking the can down the road, with all due respect. This is a cost of an employee in this environment, and everything is more expensive, and things are much more expensive than the 3% raise we're giving. And this is something that we can do. I mean, we're in a time when we do have good sales tax monies. And so I think it's a time that if you can do something for your employees, or your retired employees, we're not talking about that much money. I mean,
Okay.
I think there
we're
is
not-
a time where you're gonna deal with it, and I think that's gonna be when we have another slump. We're gonna say, okay, we've done this, when we had good times, we shared those good times, now we don't. I mean, we've got a problem and we're gonna have to address it, but kick the cans down the road sounds like we're just not dealing with something. I think we're dealing with it, and to me, the way to deal with it is to leave it like it is.
We're not talking about in the great scheme of things, we're not talking about any real.
I think
Go ahead.
we look at it from a sustainability approach. There's no question, we've got some excess monies coming in, so you would think that those things are things that you probably wouldn't do. But I think what we're thinking about is when those things aren't as good, and you have to start pulling back. What is it you're gonna pull back? Are you gonna pull back those benefits? Are you gonna pull back salary? Are you gonna let people go? Those are the things that I think we think about when we start looking at what costs need to be adjusted to, and whether or not that gives us the opportunity so we don't have to do those things in the future.
And I appreciate that, but I do also think that we're not competing against the local municipalities or whatever they may be. You're competing against a very aggressive enterprise out there that, benefits and things accordingly are pretty healthy.
Right now.
The way I look at it. Right now, but we face the same thing. We've done it for 20 years, and we keep looking at the aspect that they can go somewhere else and get it somewhere else. In order for us to keep the environment we have, it's not only an emotional thing, but it's also the people that you've got. They've been here, they've done it. They're gonna, you don't have to go train them, you don't have to, I don't think it's enough to matter. I'm like you, Peggy, I don't look at it as kicking it down the road. I think it's facing, and I think it's exactly what you're doing. Every year you look at the budget, you're facing, what are the obstacles gonna be in front of us? And they may be different every year.
I would think that we put ourselves in their shoes and ask ourselves what we like, what we're doing, or we're proposing right now, what we'd like for it to happen to us, and how will we feel about it. Because personally, should we actually go this route and help these employees out, I think that will give us an employee surplus when this economy does take a dip. People might be running to the city, applying for jobs, and we will have that employee pool.
And that-
Not quite now.
That usually happens, right?
And that usually happens, that's what I'm saying. So why not establish this for them right now?
And I think it just says a lot to employee morale, because you excite them and say, wow, we're getting a one-time payment, we're getting 3%. Then we pay our insurance, and did you really help us? We know we probably did, but it just does not look that way for the employee. who's
It's
not
one of those
making-
But in that
buttons.
Yeah, but
It
in
really
that
is.
conversation, what we're wanting to do and change is, okay, we're getting a one-time payment, we're getting a 3% increase, and even though insurance has gone up all over our students, we still get free
I
insurance.
appreciate what you are saying. I
Absolutely.
do, I appreciate what you're saying, what you're looking at. I just think that,
The timing.
there's other ways of supplementing this somehow. Maybe it's an intercompany charge that you charge each department to reserve into this account. I don't know if you can do that or not, but, based on the number of employees you have, then, okay, you've got 20 employees, you need to put another $100 from your department into this supplemental for us to look at down the road.
I mean,
We do
that's-
We are, that's the
actuarial
350
studies.
extra. That's the other part of the 500,000. The 150 was the employee side, the rest of it
Was
was
on the
the department
side.
paying.
Can we raise it a little bit?
Yeah, we raised it $350
Can you
per
do it
position.
500?
We can.
No, I'm just.
No. Certainly, if that's what the council chooses to do, we can just simply.
Well,
Well, $150,000 off of this is not gonna make us go negative, and I think the publicity and the bad morale is,
just all the wonderful things that Paul's been putting in the papers, I guess it's gonna be
Yeah.
good enough.
Thanks,
Yeah, Paul,
Paul.
Get it good, Paul.
Okay.
Good. So just as we're on it, we will have the council's wishes to see no increases for the employees.
And we'll retire.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
And we're not making it up on the department side, right?
Make it up somewhere.
That's-
but it's not
It's a-
negative,
it's
it
150.
just means there's not as much excess.
All you were looking at was 150, correct? So
About
this would be
a-
350 added instead of,
About 170, 67. Do y'all want us to go back and charge it back through to all the departments? I mean, that's
It will
kind
change
of-
that.
It's 6 of one, half dozen the other, it's still coming out of the same.
Well, but what I mean is that we have to go back in then and change it to all the funds, all the departments.
Change their
We've already
expenditures.
increased it, so if we go back through, we go back, so all your numbers will change from this to what it looks like, because we would have to increase that charge to each department.
Cause it was.
But why do you have to increase the charge?
If we want to try to make up that difference, we're
But
losing.
I'm saying, all it
Okay.
means is that, you
I
know,
agree.
we don't have 630,000 extra, we've got
480.
400.
Does that sound right? Are we in the right page? You had 480
Well,
rather than.
we were projecting to get it up over $1 million, so it'll be less than that.
But the difference between the revenue and the expenses right now is 600 and some odd thousand dollars.
Right.
And what we're saying now is it will be
Less.
450,000.
No, we won't.
So no.
Okay.
I asked the question, have we done actuarial studies?
Yes.
And I'm sure we have.
We do.
I know I'm.
In fact, we have to account for that liability. That's what when we present the financial to y'all, OPEB, when we talk about OPEB, that's other post-employment benefits. And an actuary has to do that calculation, and we have to record that liability in our CAFR. So currently, for the city, currently that OPEB, that liability in total is 12.9 million. And that increases generally every year.
And that's not the
So-
fire, that's just the city's portion.
That's just on health care,
Right.
yes.
And see, that's the reason she's talking about spreading it out with the departments, that's gotta be paid somehow.
Right. Now, I mean, can we postpone it till next year and do it? I mean, if we have anything catastrophic during the year with claims, which, I mean, we haven't had that in several years, but a few years ago, we had 4 in 1 year hit max out. So if we have that kind of situation, then we can come back and say, it looks like the fund's gonna be in a problem. We can do a transfer to it from general fund and substantiate the fund at that point.
It's a good idea.
Okay, okay. Okay. Boy, I got through that one and jumped right into the golf course. Okay. Our golf course fund, our operating fund balance has been in the hole, and we expect to bring it out of the hole a little bit this year. Revenues at almost 2 million, our expenditures at 1.7, and part of that's due to, they've had some salary savings. They've lost, a couple of key positions that were vacant during the year, so, that's the reason we think we can pull it up a little bit. For the new 1920 year, there's not, we did an increase in fees last year, if y'all will recall. So we didn't have an increase this year in the fees. I am proposing an increase in the general fund transfer from 200,000 to 400,000, hopefully to help turn the fund around. They requested quite a bit of supplementals, and that's on page 41. And we were giving them supplementals of 135,500. This is another fund that that we're concerned about. It's one that we've talked to y'all about before. It's a quality of life issue. That was kind of the stance council took on that. This is another area where we're projecting a sizable increase in general fund balance for 1920. If y'all are interested in trying to pull this fund back out of the hole, you could do a one-time transfer, budget a one-time transfer for the 1920 year and get this fund hopefully back on its feet.
Can somebody explain how this is a quality of life situation?
Since it's a public golf course, it's the only, I mean, I know there's another one there that's not really a good one, but there are a lot of citizens in this town that play golf, and that's the only option if you're not the member of the country club. This is the only, and it's a huge athletic event here.
Was it 37,000 rounds, was that correct? 37, 38?
And it's been written up too as a really good public course, and I
It
mean,
falls
it's,
in
See, I play golf too, but this is a leisure.
It
This is
like
falls in this
parks.
parks and recreation concept. That's a quality of life.
Like a
It's
swimming pool, like
I mean, people don't
Yes.
pay to go to the parks either. I mean, this is, and they do pay something here, they do contribute
This is
to
their
it.
only park that.
Your average person is not gonna be out here on this golf course.
I disagree with that.
kinda like the newspaper article today, I mean, you know, it's the championship, and it's pretty well attended.
Did that come from Norway?
It's all right.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, you didn't get the right one, I
I'm
saw it,
just kidding.
I'll get it for you, okay?
All right.
No, I do think it is, and you get a quality player for the club championship, no question. So the answer is, do we wanna make it all up at one time, or do we wanna just keep seeing what happens?
And as a reminder, we're adding an additional 200,000 over what we've traditionally done.
So what we're basically saying is that right now, we have to supplement it $400,000 for it to break even. I mean,
Yes.
you know, I mean,
And
we're
it's
saying
not
it's
getting it out of the
making-
hole, but
Yeah,
it
but
does
for-
break even.
Yeah, I mean, forgetting the whole, which has happened, but for, of what we're looking at for annual operations, right now, we're gonna have to put 400,000 in for it to break even.
And so even with the amount we gave, right there, is it? Ratliff Ranch, 50,000,
Where are we?
on that, for that hotel motel tax that we did.
That's for
Yeah, that's for advertising.
Oh, okay, okay,
That's strictly
That's
advertising,
right.
that's out
I
of the
remember.
hot money,
I
yes.
remember.
It's, I'm not a golfer, but is there a way of increasing the participants, the golfers? And I think it's busy, I live out there, and it's busy a lot of the time. Can you squeeze another
Well,
foursome in?
And I think that's that was the justification that Steve gave when he was asking for the advertising money through hotel. He said, there's room to add rounds out there, they're not completely full up all the time. Now, of course, there's premium times people wanna play golf, and those are probably full. But, maybe if they could fill in some of the other slots and get the rounds up, I think he was shooting for 40,000 rounds, isn't that what
Yes.
he
Yeah,
said?
they've had about 8% drop. The other thing about it is though, these carts have speeded up play.
The
They
carts have
have,
speeded up play, the new carts have really helped out a lot, I think, with, some of the issues they were having with people driving where they weren't
Repairs and
supposed to.
maintenance.
Cause it just shuts them down, they can't drive there, so I think that's.
Dang it.
Yeah.
But
They
Tom,
built these
Kind of
barriers in
There
the
is a
park, if
point
you
where
get too
too
close
many
to the
golfers
green,
and
it
not
just
enough
shuts
capacity.
it down.
I understand. I didn't know where we were. Were we at 80% or 110%?
I think we're, yeah, I think we're at almost 38,000 rounds.
Yeah, I think they're down about 8% as well, when they're going over the marketing.
And you'll know that, so in the current estimated 18-19, 125,958, that's the restroom that y'all approved. And so, that's why the general fund transfer for 18-19 is higher than 200,000, because we transferred that money to them to pay for that. The 135,500 in supplementals, they were asking to do some work on the cart path and replacement, and staff and Steve thought that was one of the better things to do, especially in light of having the new cart, to get the cart paths renovated. There's some of them that have
Cracking and drainage
cracking
issue.
and drainage issues, so.
I
So-
would say too, and it is proven, and you can see it at the country club as well. When times are really good here and we're in a boom, we have fewer rounds of golf.
Yeah.
It
Everybody's working.
works opposite of what you would think. When times are slower, then there's more golf rounds. Salesmen are out taking people again, trying to get business. When times are so busy, they don't play. We see the same thing at Odessa Country Club.
The other thing is that this is greatly used by the retired people. I have to admit that. I don't think I've received as many phone calls from anybody as when we were talking about the golf course, because of, and there's a lot of, it's not like it's exercise, it's a quality of life. We gotta, as you mentioned, no different than walking around the park, walking around the whatever swimming pool, whatever it might be, it's a quality of life, and I think it's well received here. It's a good golf course. A lot of things have changed since that new greenskeeper and all that stuff. It's really done
Yeah,
a
it's
good job.
much better shape.
Yeah, it's
We've
really
got a
done
good
great.
one. So, my understanding that we leave it as is, increase it to the 400,000 and go on from
Peggy,
there.
I wanna do anything, Peggy, Cindy, to make you feel better about that place, so.
I think we need to give Cindy golf lessons and get her.
Exactly. Cindy and I
As
gonna
if she
go out.
has time.
Hey,
to go.
I get enough influence from my husband, and he's a golfer, so
We can call it professional
Because
development.
I'm
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to make you happy, Cindy, that's all we wanna do.
I could tell you my really good golf stories. I am to page 42, debt service fund. Okay, so, basically what happens with the debt service fund is you have your scheduled principal and interest payments on each of the outstanding issues, and you set your debt tax rate as part of your property tax rate sufficient to cover, the payments on those. So for the 18-19 year, we do have a little bit of difference between the revenue and the expenditures. Our expenditures actually are a little less, and revenues are higher because of the interest income. We typically don't budget investment income except in our major funds, water, sewer, and general fund. Okay. And for the proposed budget of 1920, you can see the increased amount of the ad valorem tax revenue, and that ties back over to what we discussed earlier about the tax rates. And we've added the payments on the new certificates of obligation that we're proposing to issue on August 13th. And so that's a balanced budget of revenues and expenditures, and we maintain our fund balance in the debt service fund. And behind there, so you'll notice that the 2009 refunding issue paid out. And then if you'll turn to page 43, we have given you the payment schedules for each one of the issues. So you can see when some of the issues are paying out, like 2012 will pay out in 24, the 2003 will pay out in the 22 year, okay? And on the next page, 14 and 15 refunding bonds in 26 and 27. And then on the last page, our most recent refunding, which was done in December of 17, plays out in 33, and then in 39 for our new issue, which is a 20-year issue. Okay? Page 46 is your total of all general obligation debt. On page 47 is what we have left of payments out of our water sewer fund. Okay? And we have no more payments on capital leases. That's something that's been in here in the past, but 18-19 is the last payment on our capital lease. So
And what is that for, Cindy?
that was on the fire trucks.
And that was how much?
It ran, almost, or just under 800,000 a year. I'm sorry, that wasn't on the fire trucks, that was on the Motorola,
Oh, okay.
lease. And, on page 48, which I've already, determined is the, hotel motel, and the allocation of, that y'all awarded in the council meeting previously. Under estimated for 18-19, about the third line from the bottom, you'll see the, transfers that have been made out for the, conference center.
Wait, where are we?
Page
48.
48.
Yeah, I was on 48, but,
Third line from the bottom. Transfer for the
oh, I see,
convention
I
center.
see.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, can see that there, and so, that project will end this fiscal year, and, hopefully, it ends this fiscal year,
Yes.
and, then we go forward.
Oh, I don't know.
None of the cost of these capital improvements in the CO are included in this budget. Did I understand that right? For instance,
The debt
You
service.
go-
The debt
The debt
services.
services.
yeah, other than the debt service itself, we have nothing built in here for the additional
Right.
personnel, et cetera.
We don't expect additional personnel
As a
within,
result of that.
as a result of that, until the fire stations are actually built, okay?
Animal
And,
control
and,
shelter.
and possibly animal control. But, when you issued that, the proceeds from that go into your capital projects funds. And those are budgeted on a by project basis, okay? Those are not part of your annual operating budget, okay? Because those capital projects are done on a project by project basis, and you approve those budgets based on that. So, currently, we have some remaining, 2013 bond money, and that's what we're building, that's what we're doing the university project with, okay? So, those are on a project by project basis, so they're not part of your annual operating budget, okay?
But the
Does that
two
make sense?
point nine became part of it on university
Well,
because,
yeah, because we had to fund that out of
Right.
general fund, the money came out of general fund and it went into the capital project fund to help do that, to finish out that project.
But the additional firefighters, animal control people,
Well, and so-
ultimately have to hit
Yes,
the budget
and
somewhere.
those will probably come about in your next budget, 2021. Because the fire stations won't be completed until then, and your animal shelter as well.
When is university scheduled to be completed?
It's, well,
It's scheduled to
starts-
start in September, right? And I think they've got 18 months to finish.
It started this past September?
No,
No,
because
this
You're
coming.
saying this coming, okay.
If you recall, we had trouble even getting bidders on that project at one point.
And that project has been a long time coming. I mean, we talked about that when we issued that, but a big part of that project was buying the right of way, having all the utility lines moved and stuff like that. So it was design at first, and then it was
Pre-work.
purchasing right of way and doing
Right.
all of that work in and then we got delayed because we couldn't get a bid on the construction, so. That one's drug out. Okay, so, I'm thinking, do we need a break, or do we need to tackle general fund and what?
Mayor needs a break.
Mayor needs a
5
break.
minutes, I can just go take one and y'all can keep going.
No,
Pure
let's take a
teacher.
break,
Itchy?
take a break.
Be sure she
Kinda like
doesn't take
lunch.
her purse
It's
and do
kinda
an
like-
Irish
yeah,
exit.
it's kinda
I
like
know.
lunchtime.
I know.
Kinda like
We're
lunchtime. All I
doing
do is
good,
give
we're
you-
only at 11
We
o'clock.
are doing good.
Dewey's got me on a 12:30 done day.
I think we're there.
He's ready to
Teacher's
hit
right.
that road. Quit
Share the teacher's
pressuring
right.
us. He can hear Rich Osick.
I can hear the
I clean it every gets done.
Okay, so where are we going to here?
No, I don't think.
So we go back to the beginning
Yes.
and talk about,
In the beginning.
revenue. Is that where you wanna go, Cindy?
I think we need to, make a determination on what we wanna do with taxes, property taxes. Do you wanna tackle that one first or sales tax? Well, they're kinda, we kinda, yeah. You do property taxes? Okay.
So go back over the new handout we got
Got it.
with the blue in the middle. That is what is the final, correct?
Yes, but I mean, let me caveat that because in the I did the calculation based on final taxable numbers that I got from both appraisal districts. The calculation actually entails, it's 4 pages worth to do the calculation. So you have to cover things like refunds made back for prior years, you have to look at new property, you have to look at certain other types of property for pollution control. Anything that got annexed in affects the calculation. So there are a couple of numbers in here that we did not have from Midland County Appraisal District. We did have them for Ector County. So this calculation could change slightly, okay? We always rely on the appraisal district's calculation. Ron Patterson actually does that for all jurisdictions here. So it could change slightly, but I think it would be pretty minimal. So the rollback rate, based on that information, is the 0.483886.
Okay.
Okay? As I said earlier, I mean, typically that is what the city does, is stay just under the rollback rate. It's gonna generate additional income of about $1.1 million, a little over that, from, what we proposed to you originally. If we leave the tax rate as it is currently, our current rate is the 0.476601. That's gonna generate about $300,000 of additional revenue, so quite a bit less. And the only thing that I will remind you is that your tax rate cannot grow as much as it could in the past because of what the state legislature did. So we went from getting an 8% increase to only a 3.5% increase.
So this will be the last opportunity.
Yes, this is the last time we can do that. This one is at 8%. That's not effective until 1/1/20. Okay.
Ladies.
So I will tell you, in the calculation, and again, I'll be glad to provide this to you. So because of our increase in revenue needed to cover our debt, the rate increased by 4.868 cents, okay? 4.868 cents due to the new debt. But because of the increase in values in getting at the rollback rate, we had a 4.139 decrease. When your values go up, typically your rate's gonna come down because your effective rate forces you at what did you get last year, okay? And then the 8% gets you to add to your maintenance and operation rate. And then you add your debt rate to that. So they pretty much kind of offset each other, okay? So the rate increase, if you use the rollback rate, is from 0.476601 to 0.483886, which is only 0.7 cents. So it's not even a penny, okay?
Could
So
you
you
explain
can-
rollback? Could you explain rollback again?
The rollback rate, it was established to say, aside from new property and some other minor adjustments, that, you should set your rate, if the values go up, then your rate should come down so that you maintain the same level of revenue, okay? Except you get that 8% growth. That now has been changed down to 3.5, effective 1/1/20. That was the House Bill 2, thank you. Or Senate Bill 2. Senate Bill 2. Anyway, So the rollback rate is to get you back to what your revenue was last year, except for you get to get the new property, because that wasn't there last year, so you get that added value. Plus you get the 8% growth on your maintenance and operation. Now, the debt service rate is a different component of your total rate. If you've got debt to pay, I mean, the debt rate is limited to $2 in the state of Texas. Well, we're not anywhere close to that, okay? So your debt rate, it increased because we're issuing new debt, okay? But our maintenance and operation rate has come down by almost the same amount because we have increased values, okay? And we got the 8% growth.
And so what if your property value does not go up, or the increases are not there because of either your?
So when the property values go down or they stabilize, then if they stabilize, then your rollback rate should stabilize. If they go down, then that rate will go back up, okay? Because you're trying to take the value and the rate and match what you had in the prior year as revenue, plus any growth that you're allowed, plus new property. Does that make sense?
Kinda, sorta,
Okay.
sorta.
So the whole purpose of the rollback is that you're not trying to just come in and, greatly increase your revenues without substantiating, I mean, debt part is one thing, but the M&O is keeping you at a level you were the prior year, except for added new property and the 8% that they've allowed us all these years, and now it'll be 3.5 going forward. Okay? So, I don't, so I guess, I mean, I don't know that staff has a strong stance on this, other than that we would not want to see the tax rate decrease. Because going forward, you don't have as much opportunity to raise that, so I would highly recommend you not go below the tax rate.
That was one of the fallacies in HB2, is that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're gonna do what you have to do every year to maintain. So basically, they guaranteed that we would be raising their taxes 3.5%.
We're supposed to catch that part.
I think, psychologically and for the city, I think the fact that we can issue a $93 million certificate of obligation and not raise the property tax overall rate is pretty impressive. I mean,
It is impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, it is, because people that are against it are against it because we didn't give them a vote about it, and it's gonna cost them something. Well, the fact is that we could do this very same rate and be able to support this debt, because property values have gone up, which has nothing to do with us. We don't have any say in it, we just give that is not our deal, okay? And so the fact that we can increase our city assets by $93 million mostly for quality of life issues here.
Well, I don't know that I would say quality of life, it's more the road repairs, I mean.
Well, the road repairs, yeah,
And
are
the fire
19
station,
million,
fire
but
stations is a
well,
public safety.
Like safety.
yeah, and I'm calling it quality of
Yeah.
life because it's the life.
It's everyday life.
It's everyday life, you know?
Right, exactly.
And we're hitting the animal shelters, we're hitting the parks, things that people have said, we are being responsive to that.
Right.
So I think the fact that we could literally do that without an increase in tax rates is pretty impressive. Should we do that without an increase in tax rates is a whole nother question, because for seven one hundredths of, no, 7/10ths of a penny, no, 7 100ths
Mm-hmm.
of
The penny.
of a penny, we can increase it, very, very small amount, but it does set the bar for the 3.5% for the future year.
Absolutely.
And I mean, to Tom's point, we're almost forced to do that because now, I mean, and we haven't ever raised it that 8% that everybody was so upset about controlling. We haven't done that. But now we're almost forced to do it the 3.5 because that's all we can do. So, you know, I think it's impressive that we don't have to. It's not a huge amount to raise to at least set our base because we're gonna have the limitations in the future. And mainly to remember that none of this has to do with anything in our budget except public safety. I mean, all of this money is going to fire and police. It's not going to anything else we wanna do or can do. And so I think that people need to realize that. So I can go either way with it, that having been said. I think it's impressive that we don't have to raise it. The amount that we could raise it is very minute and increases our basis for the future, so.
It might be minute to some, but to others who are already struggling with the cost of living increase and who are property owners, it really strains them. It really strains them, especially when they don't necessarily have anything to do with the decrease or increase in the property value, but maybe their neighbor does, you know, for whatever reasons.
Well,
So
in the
that's
general market, I mean, we can
Just
see the
over-
general market
Right.
is increasing it,
Right.
so. They
Right.
may have not done one thing to their house and will see an
Absolutely.
increase just because the whole market in this area is higher.
And a lot of, I mean, we have to be honest, a lot of these individuals are, a large percentage of them are retired, fixed income. City workers, fire department, police department, retired teachers and things like that, so this is gonna affect them.
Of course, their
Somehow, some
property
way.
tax rates have been frozen at least, but no, I don't disagree with you, that's why I said
So
I
you're
should
saying
do.
stay the same, Malcolm?
I would
Keep it
like
the
for it to
same.
keep it the same.
Deidre?
I don't see increasing property taxes right now, especially when we have sales tax that we can get real creative with. I mean, let's utilize it the best way we can while we have it.
And I'm perfectly fine with that. I just wanted us to understand that becomes our base for.
No, absolutely. I do understand that. That's, you know, but I just feel like it's penalizing the individuals who have done stuff right
And
and who have done what we would want them to do as a city, which is to come to Odessa and settle. I think the thing that we're not speaking about is how can we get those guys out of man camps to come and actually grab some of this property so we could spread this out, because as it sits right now, this ad valorem, a possible increase, we're saying, hey, you citizens who have done everything right, who have done positive things for this community, have been staples of this community, all of a sudden, we're gonna penalize you for that. We're gonna add a penny of this yoke to your back and to pay for everybody else's, because they're not the ones that are adding the extra wear and tear to Odessa. They're not the ones that are bringing the potholes and things like that. this influx of people from the oil and gas industry. I've said it before, it's a blessing and it's a curse at the same time. So how about we focus on getting those people to come inside of Odessa and settle?
Well, I think you don't see that in your property tax, but you for sure see that in your sales tax. And so when they go
Right,
away,
and-
then
so
that's when it
If
starts
we're
hurting
grabbing,
us.
if we're grabbing the left and right pocket of
Right.
our homeowners and just only the right pocket of the individuals coming in and out, let's find a way to grab both of their pockets instead of saying, hey, since we can't grab both sides of your pocket,
Right.
we're gonna grab more from our homeowners' pockets. That just doesn't sit well with me, that's why.
I'm leaning towards what Malcolm is saying on this, even though, and in part going back to originally, you know, Peggy's comment about if all goes well on this debt that we're about to incur, and we can do that without raising. I mean, we can tell people we can do this without raising. Then, man, that speaks volumes.
Can we give
But-
them a guarantee though,
But
that we're
No.
not going to?
no,
Well,
no.
no, you can,
We can't.
you can maintain the tax rate, you're not maintaining their tax bill, no.
Correct.
The value,
Valuation.
the valuation
Yeah.
increase
So
of
it's still
that.
gonna
Yeah,
cost you
just on the
more,
tax
but our
rate.
rate is not going up.
Yeah. And on the other hand, because of the limitations that we have, should we? I don't know, I'm leaning towards, let's keep it as it is, but I'm not 100% on that.
I, at this point, would say leave it as it is, based on what all we have going on with the city and what all the citizens, you know, are seeing. I know at some point, we can't continue to do that based on HB two, but if this year we can, I'm for it,
And we can.
and we can.
Oh,
What difference are we talking about? Less than $1 million, right?
Yeah.
900 something.
Not even 907, cause
No,
that's
it's
1%, so it's 70% of that.
680. That's your salary for you, that.
He wasn't one of those you were
He
talking about.
I guess I'm much like Deidre. I can argue this deal either way, you know. It does become a self-fulfilling prophecy. But, you know, this CO is gonna be difficult to promote if we don't hold it. It's gonna be difficult to promote, period. But, you know, you know, I guess the other question, Michael, can you find an extra $1 million somewhere in your budget?
We can start getting people to cut back, yes, sir.
Yeah, because that's what
Well,
we're asking you to do.
I mean,
We're gonna raise your
But
insurance.
you've used,
I've used the less number in your budget as
it's
right.
already.
Your
leave it at the
budget,
same.
your budget number is at,
Those are 30.
32,385. So with keeping the rate the same, it'll be at 32,699. So it doesn't affect your
It doesn't
budget.
affect.
It goes up a little bit.
Because you're actually have a slight
Yeah.
increase.
You're where you want to, you got to increase in services too, to go along with additional expenses. You know, I'd say leave it the same.
But again, I mean.
I agree with Malcolm, just leave
But
it where it is and let's move on.
Those increase of services is not coming from our loyal citizens, the
Well-
homeowners. This increase in services is coming from the migrant traffic that's coming in and out to work in Odessa. And these people are staying in man camps right now. And these people are going home on the weekend.
I'm pretty sure those people in Parksville Ranch would disagree with you.
Parksville, where's that?
Would-
Out east, northeast.
or Lawndale. They moved from somewhere within the city
Mhm.
out there. They're loyal citizens, but they require additional services because those new neighborhoods are new.
I understand that, and I can understand that, but I'm speaking about the old core of homeowners here in Odessa. That's a new development, I understand that. of course, they would need more services, but I'm speaking about the core of citizens. Yeah, so anyway, it's just my thoughts.
You know, I think that all are justifiable arguments. HB 2 kind of throws a curve into us, but because this year we need $93 million, I'd say leave it the same. One thing I want to point out, and I think it's up, we need to point out when we get around people is Odessa has nearly 19% exemptions. That's a number, that is a huge number, which Malcolm helped those people that are here, that have been here, et cetera, et cetera.
I agree, and they still struggle.
And it helps. So that's a huge number. I think we compared that one time, I think, didn't we? And the rest of them are just absolutely hardly anything. I think
Over $1
I think
billion.
Dewey's
Yeah.
right, we don't talk about that enough.
so do we want to take a vote? All those in favor of leaving it the same, or whatever the rate is, Cindy, I don't have it.
44.
No, we're voting, we're taking a consensus.
Excuse me,
We're-
excuse me. We're taking a poll.
A poll, that's a very
Those
good
poll
poll.
that would like
It's the
to
same.
poll.
Okay, let me ask.
Legal, help me out.
Legally, it's the same thing. You can
So-
talk around and get everybody's answer.
Okay,
That's what we're doing.
We got a general consensus.
okay,
The council has given the staff generalized direction.
there you go.
But at the end of the day,
Unanimously, we have agreed.
we are still sound at keeping the rate as is.
The budget is
Yeah, the
based on.
budget is based on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we are still sound.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
Daggone, I want to do it. Never mind.
And I have lots of these copies if anybody wants them. Peggy took
I do
hers.
want one.
I had mine.
Well, but you want to
I want a
revise.
revised one, yeah.
I mean, it's really,
Right.
I think it would, here you go.
And
Would
it's
really help
interesting.
understand that process, because I know, we kept wanting to say during, when we were talking about the COs, well, what's it gonna cost us? Well, I talked to Paul, the debt service would cause an increase in the rate, absolutely no doubt about that. But the increased values caused an offsetting decrease in the rate. And that's why I couldn't give you an
Yeah.
answer.
But
And
it's
until I get
also-
numbers, I can't get there for y'all.
But it's also, you know, when we first looked at this, I sat back and said, we may not have to.
Yep,
But the worst part about it, in order for us to come out with the CO, we had to say, so it just.
And now we
Now we,
can't.
now
Now
we
we
can,
can't.
exactly, exactly.
The other thing, Dewey, when you're talking about the 20% of exemptions, I think it's really, really important that people understand too, that of their property taxes, the city only gets like 14 or 15% of it. 15% of the property tax bill. So we're, you know, when you say you've done this to our property taxes, we only get 15%
What
of
is that dollar you did the other,
It's 15%.
you did,
Philip.
Philip, did you do the dollar when we were at that, the meeting at Parks, when we talked about that?
But to your point, the property tax again doesn't even cover police and fire.
Right, right.
Covers police
Or fire, one of those.
Then how about we start promoting and getting more people in these houses? That's what we've been doing here for the last, how many months have we been trying to push that through ODC? Let's
push
get on
through
that.
now.
Let's get
Yes.
on that.
I mean,
And
it's been.
let's get more people in houses is what I'm saying. Then, I don't think the answer would be, okay, let's increase the rate on the small pool that we have. I'm saying let's increase the pool so we can spread it out.
Let's have a bigger number.
Yeah, let's have a bigger number of residents here in Odessa. That's all I'm saying.
It is working that direction. You know, there was 4,000, houses approved, lots approved for housing in the last month and a half, something like that.
In there, we're doing better.
Good.
So Councilman, I'll tell you that solid waste is putting out 8 new containers per week for residents. That's not including apartments, that's just homes in Odessa.
Now,
Is that in a specific area? Or-
It's It's gonna be mostly in your north and in your east.
Okay, new development.
Yes,
Right.
And those are all rollouts.
rollout, correct, yes.
8 a week, that sounds small to me.
Yeah, but it'll be interesting to see what our solid waste master plan shows us with, Philip's been checking on the dumpster garbage trucks, and they're not making any improvements to those garbage trucks, so, a lot of communities have gone to the rollout.
Because we're not, the side ones are not doing anymore, aren't they? I mean, isn't that
They're
They're
about
still
to
doing them,
disappear?
but they're,
They're not as prolific as they once were.
Me too.
Well, you wanna hear from Mike Gardner, just talk about that.
I did. I did, but I had to say, we're gonna agree on that one, so you don't even have to.
I mean, there's areas in District 1 that have seen a huge increase of just trash. In fact, a lot of these construction companies that are over there, building, homes and whatnot, they're dumping this stuff in the trash. How can we police that?
They should be,
Getting
have their
roll-off.
own.
the
Right.
roll.
Right, and it's not the case. They're just going to the trash, dumping everything in the trash can.
I know there are a number of times that we get called by residents because they aren't put in the trash, but if we catch them, we issue them a citation.
You all, something I wanna be sure everybody noticed, cause I've been complaining about this ever since I've been on council, since I saw this. But our mineral value went up 50%. I mean, I've said there's no way our mineral value should be less than $10 million, and now it's almost 15 million, so I was so.
It's on
Page
page
7.
7.
The values, because, we've talked about how could we only have this much in mineral? I think Midlands is like 25 or 30 million, so last year.
That's pretty low, though, 15 million.
But
Yeah, but
don't-
it's in the
That's funny to bring
city.
out in front of people.
Yeah.
What do you think that our mineral assessed value is, and listen to people, what they think?
Oh, they think it's huge,
You-
but the fact is that it's just the minerals under the city.
Can we
And now I think
renegotiate?
horizontal drilling is.
We can't
We don't
renegotiate
want to,
that?
no, we don't. We don't want to touch this now, leave that alone, okay?
Negotiate for something better?
But the fact is that 50% increase, I was really tickled to see that, because it only made sense with horizontal drilling coming under the city that our value would go up, so, anyway, I was really
And I
glad to
guess
see
the
that.
only other thing I would say to the calculation that I gave you is it includes, the numbers in, for the TERS. So you remember how the TERS is gonna work, it was established in 18, and that would be the baseline value. So any increases above the baseline value from that
Right.
point forward stay within the TERS. And so, we'll be working with the appraisal district on that because, the hospital's participating at 75%, the city's at 100%, and the, OC is at 100%. So we're gonna be working through all of that as to when they collect, because they'll collect the total amount, so we'll have to go back in and work through, it's only the difference between the baseline and the total to segregate that out into the actual TERS. So, the TERS isn't really part of the operating budget of the city, but the city will be maintaining that TERS, so that'll be something that we'll start doing in the new year.
And we have that group set up, that board.
We
Yes.
met a couple of times.
And because there's no money yet in the TERS, there hasn't been a budget established, so. Is there any discussion that we need to do on the sales tax, budget? Are we going to leave it as where we have it?
Can I ask a question about that? And I was here when it went from 38 to 31.
It wasn't fun, was it?
You just did it, but is there any way of, and I'm asking this question, okay?
I know we have a 60-day fund that we set aside, that we keep all of our expenses associated with it for a mandate.
Our fund balance is
Right.
what he's talking
Can you include, this is just a question, just because it's not put in anywhere where it would be looked at spent, can you put funds for debt service in there?
Like, are you talking like a prepayment of
Yeah,
debt?
I mean, you can't do that.
No.
I mean, it's part of our daily, our month-to-month operation.
That fund is set up, I mean, it would take a change in the policy, because that's a fund balance, a policy adopted by the council. So, and it's based on 60 days of the next year's budgeted operating expenditures.
Which does not include debt service.
No, but debt service is not paid out of general fund. It's paid out of the debt service fund, which gets a portion of your property tax, okay?
That debt portion.
Yeah, so that's the fund way over here at the back that
Right.
that we talked about. So it's a separate fund. You're required to maintain a debt service fund under almost all of your debt obligations. They require you to do
I
that.
have a question. Oh, go ahead.
Well, can you reach his request by, instead of having 60 days, increase the number of days? It's not,
You can change
you
your
can set
policy.
more money aside in your budget, because that's a number set by the city council.
Internally.
Yes, and right now we technically have 85 days. We have 60 days in a contingency, and we have 25 days in a budget stabilization. So we're actually setting aside 85 days. And that's what's, so on page 10, and we also set aside an amount for compensated absences. And Cindy's tried to jump into that, I don't know how many times, because when we have people leave, they've accumulated this huge amount of, but, so here's your 60-day requirement. So under your proposed column, that amounts now at 15.6 million. You have 6.4 million set aside as a 25-day budget stabilization. And then you have the 1.1 that's set aside for compensated absences, so.
Gary,
So-
I have a question. And it pertains to sales tax. Is there any way that we could lobby to impose a sin tax on your tobacco and your alcohol and things like that? Because I don't know what our alcohol sales are, but every time I'm in a 7-Eleven, the line is dang near wrapped around the corner. And they got 12 packs.
We currently receive a mixed beverage tax on alcohol. We receive a tax.
A mixed
Back
beverage?
here. It's listed back here.
Well, on the sale of drinks, like in a club.
Like-
Restaurant.
places.
Well,
So-
yeah, I
But
was
you're
thinking
talking
about it
about
at the store.
a local, additional local tax on
I'm sure
alcohol or
it would
cigarettes
surpass
or
just 49 and so. I'm just.
In the
I'm
past, there's a way to
spiritually-
do that. Let me research that and make sure the law hasn't changed on that, and I'll get a response back
Yeah.
to you and the council.
We've got an increase of it of 11,000, but I don't know what it was before the increase on
What's
page
our,
11.
what's our budget on mixed beverage tax?
It's over here somewhere.
Well, the increase is over here on page 11.
Oh, it's-
Yeah.
But the actual number that's
That can tell us
included in
just a
there.
second here. And we actually, that's collected, that's reported by the restaurants and stuff to, and bars to the state.
That's just the
And then the
increase.
state,
Okay.
pays us our portion of that.
And I'm speaking about at the stores,
The only
because
thing
every
about
time I'm in a grocery store, every time I'm in a 7-Eleven, people in front of me, 3 or 4 or 5 people, just 12-pack after 12-pack.
My only problem with that, Malcolm, though, is that you'd only have to go 20 miles and go to Crane to get it anyway. I grew up in a dry county. So what'd you do?
You went to the county
You went to the
line,
county line.
and there was always 3 of them at least.
Exactly.
Well,
lined up.
I'm not speaking
No,
about
no.
us become a dry county.
No, I'm talking about
speaking
that's
about
what happens.
But
when
A
you
16th of a
impose-
penny.
When you
Yeah, that's
impose
right.
that much more,
What
I
about
wanna
a
go over
16th
there.
of a penny? I'm
I
not speaking
wanna
about,
go over there.
for a 16th of a
Yeah.
penny, you'll go to
Yeah.
Andrews.
Absolutely.
I go to New Mexico to buy it a whole lot cheaper than.
Tobacco too.
New York University.
That's why he's heading to Odessa.
Mine
Stock it up.
I don't see how just like we're talking about how a penny is not going to affect homeowners, a 16th of a penny or
But it's that
a 32nd of a penny.
It's that psychological thing, is that you're imposing this on somebody that
that
has
has a
a
habit.
choice and can do something different. Well, when you live here, you live here.
So the mixed beverage tax budgeted last year was $530.
Oh, okay.
This year it's $550.
What was that
So
again?
$550,000 of our income is from mixed beverage.
See what?
This was
So
the
$500,000?
increase, but yeah, $500,000 of our income is from people drinking. So next time you go into 7-Eleven, tell them to double up.
Get some
more.
more.
See what I'd rather do, Malcolm, is I'd rather have Gary spend all that time on how to get this dadgum money out for these, ODC funds to get these.
Definitely, yeah, I agree.
That's where I'd like to focus.
I can agree
Yeah.
there. I can
Get
agree
that
there.
done.
Is this the point to talk philosophically about this budget?
Yep.
I mean, okay. Cause I'm just one person, but I wanna have this conversation. And whatever we do, I'm gonna tell you right now, is absolutely fine with me, but I think at least it deserves talking. This budget is very, very conservative, and I understand why. I understand because you've had years where but I also understand that if we operate in good times as if it's gonna be bad again, I think that we are not taking advantage of some of the uses we could make in good times of money. There is extra money, and I think we're conservative on what we set aside. If you look, for instance, on page 10, and believe me, Cindy and I've had this conversation, and she knows I am not anti the budget, I'm not anti anything. I want us to talk about this because I believe the council adopts the budget and we need to have thought through this. But if you look on page 10, okay, and you look at our total financing sources, it's $151,000 is what we're budgeting, okay? We actually had in this last year 151 million. We actually had $162 million worth of revenue last year. So instead of it's looking to us like we are budgeting 8.8 million increase, we are budgeting that over last year's budget. But that's not an increase over last year's income, actual income. It's actually $11 million less than last year's income. And I mean, I'm not saying we need to plan that we'll have the same thing here that we did last year, but I think it's just worth talking about, because as you look at each one of these, people do say, you've got sales tax monies and you've got it, things are better, so what are we doing with them? I'm not saying we have to spend all of our money every year, nor do I think we do. But I think that this budget is very, very conservative. And if you look at the different categories, I think there are some needs and some things that people ask for, or some one-offs that would be good to do. Mostly, I think that the council agonizes. I know I agonize every time we spend, and I know you all do. And I think that this is very, very conservative, and at least it ought to be looked at to see. Now, Cindy said, and I appreciate it, if you go ahead and put up here what you really think you're gonna get, then all of the people see it and then they want it all. They want to use it all, and we don't want that to happen. And I get that. I even said, well, is it possible that you have down here, you can't call it supplemental because we already have supplemental, our potential extraordinary income. I know that's not Gatsby, but, you know, but I'm saying somehow we know, because we don't see this again. You know, I mean, from this point on, after this next year, we're gonna see budgets when they're gonna come and bring us and say, we're gonna spend this and it was budgeted. And I just think that there are some things that we might feel like were really, really important to be done if we really looked at what I believe is some more extra monies, things that people are asking us about, rather things that are in addition to the CO, some of those one-off projects that I think there's more money here. And I don't think when you're in good times, I don't think that you run a good time business as if you're in bad times. That doesn't mean I think you go get in debt and that you spend lots of money. I'm not saying that. But I don't think you ever get caught up if this is the way that we go. I don't think you ever get caught up on roads and maintenance and all the things that we need. I think we have to be a little more aggressive. As Dewey said on the CO, I think we need to do everything we can do while we have something to do it with. And it's certainly not like I'm saying, let's go spend all of our reserves. I'm not saying that. I just philosophically, you have a new council, and I think we should talk about if the conservativeness of this budget.
And I appreciate that, because we have traditionally operated from a conservative standpoint, and I think it served us well. I mean, it's allowed us to do a lot of things, put money in fund balance.
It's allowed you to do, it served you well, Michael, except everything around us is way behind. Every study we've seen, we're behind, but go ahead, I apologize.
No, you're fine. And when we look at it this year, and then this year was no different than every other year, we looked at what we were being requested from the departments. And certainly, as I mentioned, through conversation and through discussion with those guys, we got to the point where they really got to the point to tell us what they most wanted. And when you look at what we presented you, it is $5 million more than last year. Did it meet all the needs? Did it meet all the requests, rather? Well, the answer is no, because when you have, and that almost $29 million, you're not gonna be able to touch every one of them. But I do appreciate the comment on, this is a new council, because you're right. What we have seen is that this is, in terms of philosophically on a number of different issues, you are different than the previous council. So I think for us, it is a benefit to have this discussion. That way we know how to proceed.
And it's not really just the budget, it's understanding the budgeted expenditures for operations and stuff may be just fine. But when we're talking about, impact fees and parks out at Parks Legato and all those, there's things all around that we've talked about that somebody needs to pay for. I just think there's dollars here that we could say to developers, we put in this much, you put in this much. I mean, I think we have monies to do some of the things that right now I go home at night and go, wow, how are we ever gonna get that done?
I agree with you, and I understand exactly what you're saying. My biggest worry is that, as they say, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. We've never seen this type of economic activity before. This fracking boom. So that's just that much more for us to possibly fall when this thing gets to its end point. Because we all know, we've been here before. It's not gonna be like this all the time. So I can appreciate what you're saying. I would feel more comfortable with doing what you're saying if we were to get those people out of those man camps and get them in here and get homes, put some rooftops in all over the city. Then I would feel very comfortable with it, because that's our anchor at that point. We don't necessarily have a hard anchor that's hardened in the ground to keep this ship in center point. Should we begin to just spend sales tax is gonna take a dive, and then we're gonna really have to lean on, we're gonna go back to by default, we're gonna go back to the residents, and we're gonna increase property taxes. And we're gonna increase property taxes on a few individuals that are here when we need to have everyone we can in here, just in case to hold us, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but this is really sales tax monies that I'm talking about, and I'm not talking about saying, let's give everybody a 20% raise, because then we couldn't sustain that
Right.
whenever sales tax went down.
Right.
I'm saying there are some things we could do to increase housetops. We could do some things that people have said would cost money, that would be $4 million or $5 million, that's not in this budget.
But the sales
But the-
sales tax is cyclical, just like our.
It is, but I'm not talking about doing something, committing to spend sales tax for the next 2, 3, 4. I'm talking about one-off projects with what we have now. You know, to do some of those things that we think we can't do. And I think there are some things we could do without committing ourselves to, because we're not gonna be able to do them when sales tax dollars go down.
No.
I mean, that's why we're so behind.
Should they be in the budget?
Or do you
I
want
mean,
to increase your sales tax revenue projection and just put it into your fund balance?
well, I guess I just want us to know when we're looking at things that we're really $10 million ahead of this, so we can make an informed decision. If we have an opportunity, I think there's a lot of opportunities for one-offs out there that could help move us along faster.
What, I'm gonna throw an example. I don't disagree with the philosophy. I mean, it's tough. It really is. I appreciate what you're saying too, Malcolm. You know, the biggest thing that the main camps tell me is that they can close that up and leave tomorrow.
Mhm.
And they know that. That's the reason why they got them that way. You know, it's something that, if there's a slowdown, the first ones to go are the ones in the man camp, because they're the easiest to get rid of and go home with. So, perception-wise, it's tough. We've always had that perception here in this town, which is another reason why it's tough. Don't put this in the paper, Paul, please, but what if we paid for the taps this year?
That's what I'm saying, there's all kinds of things.
I mean, I don't know what the taps are, but if you wanted to.
It's in the water sewer budget.
Yeah.
I mean, if you took, I don't know what they are, you know, again, we've got, one of the things we're trying to do is get housing quickly done, et cetera, et cetera. If you pay for that, can you do that? I mean, I don't know. I'm throwing out suggestions. It's not, I don't think it's a whole lot of money, but yet it is something that does perception-wise, wow, thanks, city, you know?
And that's an example of what I'm trying, I don't know that it's tax, I don't know, but I know right now, I don't think anybody here has a good understanding of potentially excess monies that you guys feel like you need to have, and I get that things could go down, but we sure don't ever get any of these extra things when they do go down.
We've had a lot of things that have just cost a little bit extra money than what we had really anticipated. University, goodness gracious alive. That project ever gets done, I think we need to, you know.
Have a street.
Street
Go
days.
I'll go get the champagne, I'll get the champagne over to Mexico, bring it over here.
No, we want those mixed street taxes over here, you
Oh,
need to get in here.
Forgot about that.
This budget, you're right, this council is mostly new. This budget was put together by some very good professional people.
Yep.
I am, on the other hand, pretty conservative. You get your Christmas bonus, you don't blow it all at Christmas. You put some of it away for May. And so you plan on having those one-offs, and there's no reason why we can't approve this budget.
I agree.
And then, when the time comes, we need some help with taps, or whatever the case may be, it's there. But I
Well,
don't-
Then what we need is an understanding as we go along about what the variances are. I'm just saying, we don't understand that there is extra money there.
well, And I think as a whole, probably not, but when we came to y'all, for instance, with the university project, and we said, we need 2.9, our response to y'all was, you have that in excess sales tax. It's above what we're getting in budget, so you have that money available, okay? So those are the types of things that we see that we can do with that. And I'm not trying to sway either way. We stayed with a traditional approach, and it may not be that it needs to stay traditional. I mean, I think that's council's decision, but those are things. I mean, you can amend your budget throughout the year, and we have. I mean, we amended it for that. We amended it to do the restroom at the golf course. Every year we've amended to do additional things downtown, and you're allowed to amend your budget during the year. So as you see that your projection of sales tax is that you're way under what's coming in, then you can make your budget amendments and do those things as you go along. And Peggy and I had a very good talk about this the other day. I think what she wanted to make known was that everybody understood how conservative that sales tax budget is. I mean, we're looking at probably 52 million this year coming in, and we're budgeting it at 42. 42?
41.
So, I mean,
41.
well, net 41. Okay.
But
So-
the average over the last 5 years has been 43, but again, last 2 years have been 50.
Yeah, and it surprises us every day as much as it
And I
does.
am not even proposing that we change the budget. I have spent hours on this budget, and I'm not even proposing we change it. I'm proposing that we all stay aware that as we listen to people talk about things we need, we know that if we throw money in a pot, sometimes it speeds it up. And I don't think we understand that we have that money to throw in. I really don't. Now, maybe you guys all do. I don't understand that. I have not understood it. And I'm thinking if I don't understand it, you guys probably don't realize it either. Maybe Dewey knows how much money we have, but I think some of our decisions would be different if we said, okay, look, I mean, from last year, we got a lot of, and we are using 7.5 million of what we ended up
Absolutely.
last year. That's in the supplementals. You
And
know,
we used,
but I
3
don't
million
know
in-
what that, I mean, I don't, you know.
So I would say, every month you get a sales tax report. We do that the day the sales tax numbers come out from the state. And we give you a budget to actual comparison, and it's by month. And we give you
A budget to actual
bud-
comparison of what, the budgets?
No,
No.
the budgeted sales tax. So
Oh,
so
sales
every
tax,
month,
yeah.
when you get that, you can compare what we received that month in sales tax actual to the budget and to the prior year. So you can see, and then it keeps a running total at the bottom, so you can see where, and we even put percentages in there, where we are. And I know that we have gotten behind on issuing monthly financials because of our shortest staff.
Seth's here, we
But-
don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, he's, and
got
they
all-
are, they're catching
In fact, they'll be
us
cut
up.
up next couple months.
In fact,
I'll
you
be
should
honest, the
get
staff
April
up there,
next
they've
week.
been doing a great job, even before I got here.
They
Even before I got here.
But
they-
that report
still had
goes
that
out
mentality.
that day because Paul's always wanting it first newspaper the day it comes out. So we're very diligent about getting that report to y'all, so.
And I think
That's a
your
good
comments,
indicator of what's going on.
and I think Peggy's comments are, let's be more aware of looking, maybe quarterly, we look at that. Let's talk about it. Let's put it on the agenda. Let's say, what do you think? Is there things that we can maybe look
Peggy,
at?
you wanna make sure that there's enough flexibility should something significant come up, where there's significant benefit to the city, that we all understand that the city could participate because we
That's
do have
right.
I think
access.
that's a good idea. You know, the other thing that really concerns me, that I've learned over the 6.5 years that I've been here, is the number of projects that do not get done for certain circumstances, whatever it might be. So you look at IT this year,
you got a new telephone system, and you've got a new, don't put anything else on IT. You know, that type of thing really comes to fruition this year, that I look there and I think, wow. Telephone system in itself is not something that's easy.
No.
And number two is when you're going to the Tyler system, when you're putting that new software, that's not easy. So you got IT trying to, so if anything new that we did involved IT, it's not gonna get done, I guess is what the word
Well,
is.
and it takes time. The Tyler project, we funded that
3 years.
3 years.
3 years ago, and we're still not done. It just takes. a
And,
long
and,
time.
and that got delayed, we're actually a year behind on implementing because of shortage of staff, losing staff in key areas, mostly finance, so.
You know,
Well taken.
I understand completely the limitations on the salary increases, because you have that potentially forevermore. And the city has always done a very good job of finding the resources during those downtimes. I like the one-time thing. What did it cost us for this 1,200, about $1 million?
Look it up.
Yeah. So a little bit over a million.
And that is something that you,
Who can we pass on this cost to? You know, whether it's insurance or utility bills, you know? If we've got it during these times, let's not pass that on to someone else to pay for when we can pay for these things.
I agree with everything here, but I would like for that excess to really focus on attracting and putting people in rooftops here, because that is our main problem. That is our main problem, bottom line. That's what we've been talking about from day one. How to get people in here and how to make them settle here in Odessa. I mean, new blood, so to speak, inside of Odessa. We need that terribly.
And I agree with you. When I mentioned the things about City Hall, historically, City Hall has been well maintained, reasonably well maintained. But I don't want us to get into the same position that the Ector County Courthouse has, where they've let, and I'm not gonna say by their own choice, but that building has deteriorated to the point where it's rarely functional.
Yeah,
Or
and what you.
we need to do
Yeah,
things
one of the
here.
things that we did ask for was an assessment of our buildings.
Mhm.
So that may be an opportunity to then come back to you and say, in order to get our buildings up to snuff, we'll need $2-3 million.
Right.
Well, and there's things like, I don't know if we can do it, I don't know if we'd wanna do it, I don't wanna say I'm advocating for doing it, but you know that workforce housing apartment behind 87th, I think isn't that within $2 million of needing the Odessa Housing Fund? Yeah, I mean, I think they need $2 million, you know, or they need something that we could have, I mean, that would put housing for 250, 300 people, the exact house we need, the plans are made. I mean, it's things like that, I don't know if we can do that or would wanna do it, but we don't have to do everything with ODC money. If that would get this project off the ground and get 300
That's
people in
exactly what I mean.
houses, then
I
that
would
would
rather
be
see
something
houses, but
worthy.
I would rather see houses than apartments, but.
Well,
you know,
there's room for
whatever.
houses out there too,
But
but
these
the
hit the low
point,
income.
yeah, but the point is that there might be some opportunities like that I don't think we even think about, cause we think, well, that can't be paid with ODC money, or we can't use hotel motel taxes on that. Well, we do have some resources.
Could I make a suggestion that food is here, and at least, let's continue with the conversation, but I don't want the food to get cold, because I don't think y'all would like it. Would they feel it?
Health insurance.
yes, we will make the change on health insurance. Basically, we will just remove that revenue and any increases in the premium from the employees and, the retirees. And we will watch that fund throughout the year and,
Can we make sure we market that to the people,
yes,
that they understand, the employees know that?
that council did them a favor.
I agree, I mean, they.
Look, you know,
I think, yes, absolutely.
The city did.
Cause I think they were, I shouldn't say all, several, had, indicated that they'd already heard that the insurance was going
Well,
up.
I mean, this is.
I know, that someone
This
told
is
me and
not
I
a
was
new,
like,
this is not a new topic for us. Every year we look at premiums on health, because that fund is, not real healthy, so every year we look at that and,
we have a leak somewhere, so,
yeah, so.
we have a leak somewhere, so we gotta find it.
I don't know if we do or not, that's not.
So,
No secrets.
So with those changes, we can move forward with the budget as is, if that's the direction of the
And
council.
again, Peggy, keep in mind with your last comments, you guys really want to have those opportunities, that flexibility to look at budgets.
I think that's a very valid point.
Thank you.
So do we need to,
And thank you for all your hard work.
Oh,
And I
yes.
really
And-
appreciate it. You know I do.
I know you do, and I appreciate, Zach's done a great job. It's nice to have these young guys in that can do the computer work so quickly. He's much faster than I am, so. And, Philip and Michael have been a lot of help too, so.
Thanks to everyone.
Great job.
This new computer program, is this, pretty well every department?
No, sir. Well, on the
Well-
financial side, yes, everybody's gonna have access to it. But there are certain modules, if you will, that enhance what you do that tie into the financial part. So what we propose to you in the supplemental is the part that would take care of code enforcement and building inspections. And so it's gonna help those departments be more efficient because it'll have a lot more utilization for both the staff, and then someone from the outside will be able to access the permits to find out where they're at, pay them online, get their inspections requested and tagged. So it has a lot of flexibility.
So a particular builder can look at where his permit application is?
And where it's at, what department's currently holding it, is,
Any comments that we may have said, or sent it back to the engineer, all of that.
That's gonna be on that system.
So it
And
streamlines
so can,
everything.
so can
That's
the
the whole concern.
owners, so can everybody, so we can't get blind, continue to get blind.
Well, you know, the
It's
builders,
just
the
an
developers say,
accountability.
I can't get anything done with that department, and then Michael says, but they only submitted 60% engineering drawings, and, you know, and with this, somebody can look at it and see.
Well, there's great accountability on our side and their side.
from the, it also with having code enforcement involved in it, the code enforcement officers now have to go through 3 different systems to see a particular property, you know, what, tickets we've issued, what notice of violations we've issued, but it all live in one system there, so they'll be able to see, 3 days ago I gave a notice of violation, it's time for citation. So they can put a reminder, I need to go back and check that property in 3 days, and now we can write the citation or the summons.
So what's the ETA on getting that implemented?
So the building inspection side would go first, and if we get that purchased, I would say it'd be at least a year to 1.5 years before building inspections is up. And it's definitely a cumbersome process to get those softwares online.
It's a lot of importing of different data sets.
In my 2.5 decades of management, we went through 3 business operating system changes, and people will mutiny. This is not the way I always did it before, and you just gotta hold their hand through the process.
Well, I think the lucky part where we're at now is that the staff wants this change. They're the ones that are leading this change. So the software we have now is not meeting their needs, so they want it.
Trust me, there'll be somebody say,
Somebody
"Hey,
on the weeds there.
I'm going to the oil patch, I can't do this anymore." You just
It will
have to
be
consult.
hard for some people just putting in their time and stuff on a computer. You know, and Cindy said there would be kiosks and stuff, because not everybody has a computer or a.
And those,
We'll have training sessions and everything, but it will be a different form, so.
So are y'all going away from like the timesheets?
The green bar?
Green bar.
We all.
I think IT has a plan to really work with those individuals that don't have access, and let's face it, some of our folks aren't very computer literate, so
No.
we're
Right.
working very closely with those folks.
It's gonna scare them. Thank you very much.
And those departments that don't, they necessarily don't have a computer to go sit at the desk, there's gonna, Cindy alluded to it, they're gonna have kiosks, and those kiosks will be set up in HR and risk when they need to make, changes to their beneficiaries, and then also in like parks, solid waste, where they don't have their own computer. It's next to the admin assistant, so that way they have someone that can coach them along the way with their
And
process.
we actually, when we did benefits enrollment last October, we actually had all the employees doing that online. So they all had to input their information. So we started that process with them. So our financial package goes live 10/1. Payroll goes live 1/1, so that we don't have a split calendar year for reporting purposes. And then, after that, we'll be working on our billing and collection, so that's gonna go to the new system as well.
Thank you, sir.
So are y'all changing when they get their paychecks this next year?
We're gonna go from a, semi-monthly payment to a bi-weekly, yes. And we've been talking to them about that for a long time, so that they make changes in, you know, their loan payments or whatever, that they be ready.
Do we have required, auto pay? Is that, are we still write checks?
No, we have direct deposit, and, we're looking to, I mean, you know, a lot of companies have gone to, you have to do direct deposit with your paycheck. We still have quite a few employees that don't do direct pay. But our bank offers a payroll card, so that, so they can take that card to the bank and cash it in, and get just cash back for whatever their paycheck was, right? Or they can cash out part of it. Now, if they use it multiple times in a pay period, they'll get charged a fee. The first, I think they get 2 withdrawals per pay period free. So, or they can use it like a debit card. They can pay for their groceries at the grocery store with it, so.
Or they can still just go ahead and get a paper check, or is it?
Well, we're trying to move away from that. We've gotten, okay, we haven't gotten a lot of, negativism to that yet, but we'll see as it gets closer. It might.
You know, my brother-in-law has a convenience store, you know, that they do.
Yeah, I know, it's right down the block from my house,
It's
and on
okay.
Friday, watch out, because, wow.
And, but it is.
There is 50 cars there every Friday. Yes,
Cash and
absolutely.
checks. It is just amazing how many people come through there.
Oh, yeah.
They
Well,
don't maintain a checking
because you
account.
have a lot of people from out of town there,
Yeah,
and they're all
but even before this really started, how many don't, because they can't keep up with the checking account. And so they just work off cash.
I had a manager,
Landlines, paper records, and cash money.
I had a manager work for me, he didn't want, when we went to mandatory direct deposit, he was pretty upset because he didn't want his wife to know what he made.
I like this guy.
So you would really be surprised at how much of that's actually,
Wow.
or wives not wanting their husbands
Yeah.
to know what they make.
I bet he sneaks out to the golf course.
See, that's like with the incentive pay, you know, and a whole lot of people don't tell their spouse that they get that December check. Longevity check, that's what I meant. So how many total positions are being requested to be approved?
16.
Be approved, right?
Which would bring our total of employees to,
Nice. Roughly, it'll be like 1,045.
Our employees are our
Our budgeted
positions.
Positions.
Employees is different.
Yeah.
Employees, I think we have 800 and something, 860.
860, we may do
How many do we need?
170.
about 2,000.
We're vacant 70.
172.
Yeah.
Well,
172.
1,172.
No, his question is how many are we vacant?
Oh.
174.
And we have total positions of how many?
Currently,
Well, with these new ones that are being
with these new
proposed.
ones, it's, I believe, 1,045.
So Cindy, we've got everything done we need to do for them, the budget
I
as
believe so.
such. Would y'all like to comment a few minutes or whatever before we leave? I wanna make sure Paul leaves with some absolute things that happened here. You know, I think it's important, Paul, that number one is that the things that we were able to come up to conclusion with are not gonna cost the taxpayer any more money. And I think that's extremely important, that you help us, and I'm not picking on you, Paul, but really help us to get it across to the community that, you know, the council made a very prudent decision that was best for the city and had alternatives, but chose not to, and y'all may be able to put it better than I can, but I think that we absolutely need some positive impact for the general obligation that's coming up, and you could really help us with that.
To be able, you can't really say it's not gonna cost them any more money.
No,
because
no.
of that, but the fact, for people to understand that we're gonna be able to do $93 million worth of improvements in our community without raising our property tax rate
Is that
should be
good?
really
Yeah.
impressive.
It's remarkable.
And that our insurance has gone up and we are not passing that cost on to our employees.
There's not an increase in water and sewer rates for this year, and a very slight on solid waste.
So basically, Paul, we're saying that we'll raise taxes when the Cowboys win the Super Bowl.
No.
Wait a minute.
Malcolm said, no, that's not exactly true.
And I love the Cowboys, but wait a minute.
Yeah, we can't wait that long.
I'm sorry, Dewey, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Was that out of order?
Jerry Jones gonna show up in council next council meeting.
Yeah. Join the club.
Oh, man.
Anybody else have anything?
I think it's good that we tell Paul that, but I think internally, I think it's important that we, or the staff, make sure that it's out there, the positive things that came from this, the employees, because they are talking about the raise versus the insurance, they need to not know, make it clear to them that we are working very hard, on their behalf as well as the taxpayers, We just have to get it, we have to pat ourselves back a little bit more
And I guess is Devin gonna be doing this?
She will be doing, she's out of the office today, but yes, she will be doing
She could help us with that, 'cause the more they hear, the more
Yeah,
they see,
it was-
everybody sees.
The other day after the council meeting, she wrote up what happened at council and sent it to the news station. The following day, I saw it. They wrote
I
exactly
noticed
what
them
she said.
putting that on there,
Good.
and I was pleasantly surprised.
The new
The new
information.
information? That's cool.
Well,
But it
I
will,
will have an undying love for the city of Odessa and for the employees that serve the city. And, that's why, it does affect me personally, but like on the insurance, I'm thinking of the ones that are working here, that we want them to stay here. And we don't want them to think, oh, all they're gonna give us is a 3% raise, thanks a lot. Cause I said those words before too, but to know how much they are very much appreciated, and that's by everyone in here.
Now let's work them like dogs. I'm just joking.
And thanks to the staff for your hard work.
Yes.
Y'all-
Holy
Thanks to Joe,
Thank y'all.
and you helped us to understand, thanks to
Yeah.
Peggy for helping us to understand too.
It was, like I said, I've
Yeah.
had the luxury of being here. It was, for a while, it was the most supplementals I've seen. And, of course, It's a hard thing to understand, no question, but thank y'all for y'all's input.
Yes.
I
thank
still
you.
want the bathroom remodeled.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, don't dismiss that one
That'll be a
entirely.
special project for y'all.
Where's yours, you like?
I'm just glad
Oh,
you
you already got it?
have
Wow, you broke off.
Now, that, yeah, it might be a little chilly right now,
Wow.
but that's the first time I've ever heard of
I guess we don't have anything else?
Mayor,
Is it in there?
Uh-huh,
page 14,
uh-huh.
I think she wants it at 90,000 is the problem.
45,000, fifth floor restroom remodel.
We
I
saw
saw it,
that.
but it wasn't approved.
Yes,
It is,
it
it
is.
Is it?
Yes, it is.
What?
Y'all back when it that bad?
Did y'all come replace that while we were out putting our
Now, where?
food on the?
Page 14,
Oh,
at the
14.
top, under city managers,
That's where I saw it.
Fifth floor restroom remodel.
it's coming
Yeah,
out
it's,
of,
it's.
That's a waste of
Yeah,
money.
it's a.
That's just a waste of money, dude.
45,000.
We can go outside.
That's
well, we're gonna
not
do the
a waste
bins
of
too.
That's that is approved out of this year's budget, it's $7.5 million.
We're gonna let you design it, Mayor.
You got it.
Oh, boy.
Any other,
The
is there,
budget one you look up
Oh,
here.
that's where I missed it.
anything else to bring before the group?
I just wanna say thank you to the council for your guidance. This has been helpful for us because I think we're getting familiar with what it is you guys are looking for. And, we'll make sure we make the appropriate adjustments. So thank you.
I guess we need to adjourn and all that kind of stuff. Need a motion, I guess, to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Staff, thank y'all again so much.
Thank
Y'all
you
have a
so
great
much.
weekend.
Yeah.